Welcome, everybody. We are going to call to order the Narragansett Town Council regular meeting for June 20th, 2022. It's 7:31 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll get started with the disclosure of executive session votes from our June 6th, 2022 executive session. Litigation in accordance with Rhode Island General Laws 42465A2, Narragansett 2100 versus Town of Narragansett et al. WC 2021-0448. Motion by Councilor Kopech, seconded by Councilor Drzezinski, to exit executive session and reconvene in open session, so unanimously voted. Next, we have the approval of minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the May 16th, 2022 regular meeting minutes?
I'll move the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 5-0. Do we have a motion to approve the May 27th, 2022 special meeting minutes?
I'll move the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 5-0. Do we have a motion to approve the June 6th, 2022 work session minutes?
I'll move the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 5-0. And is there a motion to approve the June 6th, 2022 executive session minutes?
I'll move the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 5-0. Next, we're going to go to our announcements and presentations. We just have one tonight from the town manager, our town manager's report. Jim?
Good evening, members of the council and the public and those who are at home listening. I had announced at the last meeting that the rights of way survey were completed. They've been provided to the Coastal Access Committee and to the entire town council. They've been encouraged to make an appointment if they need to see the hard copies, which I kept in the office for review. COVID, we have tests for anyone, test kits. If anyone's interested in them, you can grab some tonight. House and Senate bills that were pending before the legislature. The galley landing fee increase in the House and the Senate was transported to the governor. It was transmitted to the governor on June 9th, and passed into law on the 17th of this month. We now have to execute a new collection agreement with Interstate Navigation to have them collect that. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's a restricted fund that collects money for every person that gets off, over the age of 13, that gets off the Block Island boat, goes into a special fund that pays for the police detail, trash removal, beautification down in Galilee, and it's restricted for that use and that use alone. Also, the road and infrastructure bond bill was read and passed in the House, and also the road and infrastructure bond bill was read and passed in the Senate. That was a very $20 million bond to go on the ballot in November for the voters to decide. This evening, you'll be hearing about the American Rescue Plan Act recommendations, the funding. The town received almost $4.6 million. Half of it is we've received. We haven't received the other half yet. And it's projects that the town selects. Ultimately, it is the town council that will do that. There have been some recommendations made by staff, which you'll see this evening, and they were presented at a previous meeting. We have until December 31st of 2024 to identify and to encumber the money for projects and to spend it by December 31st of 2026. We'll be discussing that later on tonight as far as what the recommendations were, and that's about it for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jim. Okay, we will move on to our open forum public comment. We just ask for everyone who speaks tonight to do so in an orderly and respectful fashion. So open forum is for any items not on the agenda tonight. So if there's an item on the agenda, you can wait until that comes up to speak. If you have anything else you want to speak about, now's the time. And please keep your comments to 3 minutes. We will start with Mr. Alba. Al, please state your full name and address. Is the red light on? Press that button.
Wait, it just went on. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, Dr. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace, Narragansett, Rhode Island. Recently, the Rhode Island Attorney General opened an investigation on my behalf due to the lack of transparency since the RIDM failed to provide me with the records on who or what person advocated for a 19-year parking lot lease to proximity developers, and who or what person from the RIDM wants the state of Rhode Island to pay for the demolition of the Lighthouse Inn in Galilee, Rhode Island. Thank you, Attorney General Nerona. I would like to also thank all those who attended the demonstration rally against the RIDM wanting to award proximity developers a 19-year parking lot lease, no bid. In addition, we are demonstrating against the RIDM from wanting the state of Rhode Island, our taxpayers, to pay for the demolition of the Lighthouse Inn, as the property was abandoned by proximity developers, and they violated the terms of its 1990 lease that the RIDM failed to enforce. If it was you or I that showed gross neglect, we would be summoned into court, fined, forced to pay restitution, and possibly face criminal charges for creating a structure that is a safety, environmental, and economic hardship to our community. I would like to ask the building inspector, or whoever does the inspections, like, how did this get under our radar screen and why do we follow up? But that's for another discussion. All concerned citizens need to unite against this injustice to our state, as if this deal goes through, and if the state has to pay for the demolition of the building, it will cost our taxpayers millions, and proximity developers who has $10 billion in assets will make millions. Therefore, we need to attend the State Properties Committee meeting addressing the RIDM proximity 19-year proposed parking lot lease. And if you cannot attend the meeting, please write against the RIDM's proposal for the lease and the demolition charge to the state of Rhode Island. On this June 10th day, I have a dream. I have a dream that the $1 billion surplus in Rhode Island is used to help the most needy by building more homeless shelters, group homes, affordable housing, and treatment mental health centers. I have a dream that someday millionaires and billionaires do not use their wealth to create harm by purposely neglecting properties and land in their possession in order to take over an area for their gain and the state, town, and taxpayers' loss. I have a dream that all politicians will speak up against any governmental appointed director that has mismanaged his or her department. I also have a dream where people will not vote for politicians who fail to represent the will of the people, and they support the rich and famous for their gain and taxpayers' loss. I have a dream that all politicians will speak up about any corporation or individual who has caused harm to an area for the motivation to obtain more wealth at his or her gain and taxpayers' loss. I have a dream we have a national holiday for the Native Americans throughout the United States to remind us that they have fought against oppression throughout our nation's history. And I have a dream that our actions will be louder than that our actions will be louder than the words, and we will give action for all people, for equal rights, liberties, and opportunities, regardless of one's wealth, status, race, creed, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or gender. We have to make our voices known, but more than voice, we have to have action. Action speaks louder than words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Alba. Anyone else? Stanley? Stanley, please state your full name and address.
Stan Wojciechowski, 1044 Boston Neck Road. I just want to emphasize our pledge that we took tonight. Liberty for all, justice for all. Also, we operate under God. And because I want to reference under God, I brought the Bible here to give us some idea of how our behavior under God should be. And specifically, I just want to reference chapter 18 under Luke, where he talks about tax collector. And, well, before I start, I do want to say it, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen, that our leaders will operate under God as pledged, and they will understand and see what kind of action that would be. And that's why I use Luke chapter 18. There's a sentence in there about the tax collector. The tax collector had collected too much taxes, and therefore he was out there saying penance and really upset about it. Therefore, obviously, and to be under God, we should not collect more taxes than necessary. That's kind of a guide there. And that's what I bring up. Here we have 14 million surplus, and we only need 11. So we have a lot of extra money. Yet we're still moving in a direction of collecting more taxes than necessary. And in doing so, I say that that's not operating under God. God defined it. You don't overtax. That was defined in the Bible here. So if you're going to operate as you pledged, you would not tax more than necessary. And I respectfully ask and hope that you would see that and go back to the zero increase, which should only be $1 million, from what I understand. So you'd have a $13 million, still way more than you need, and then you'd be in line with your pledge of operating under God. I hope you understand that and would make that change, emergency change, no tax increase this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. Okay, anybody else for open forum? Okay, I don't see any hands, so we will move on to our consent agenda. Are there any items from consent that any council members would like to remove? Okay, do we have a motion to approve consent?
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll
Okay.
second that motion.
Motion by Susan, seconded by Eva. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 5-0. Number 11, under the fire department, is a motion to approve the annual service contract for the interoperable radio communication system from Motorola Incorporated in the amount of $38,201.73 for the fiscal year 2022-2023, and to authorize the town manager to sign the contract after review by the town solicitor. Is there a motion?
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Okay, any questions or discussion from the council? Okay, anyone from the public? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 5-0. Number 12, from Public Works, is a motion to award the bid for ADS pipe for the Public Works Department to the most qualified bidder based on projected usage. Warwick Windwater Company at their quoted bid prices for a one-year period ending June 20th, 2023. Is there a motion?
I'll move the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, any questions or discussion from the council? Okay, anyone from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved, 5-0. Number 13 from engineering is a motion to provide a decision on the waiver request submitted to the Sewer Policy Committee relative to Plat A, Lot 109, 41 Gibson Avenue. Is there a motion?
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Okay. Do any council members have questions for our town engineer or for? Do you want to have him come up? Okay. All right, John, do you mind coming up? Thank you. Thanks, John.
You're welcome. Good evening, everyone.
So does anyone have any specific questions for John? This was a split decision, correct? Right? Okay. Any questions for John?
I just want to clarify that what we're talking about here is a property that has two houses on it now. They want to, I don't know, do something to them and then put in three. There's, those two houses are on the sewer system.
Yes, that's
and
correct.
that's as many as there are, that's as many eligible places, I guess, that there are
Yes.
now, right?
Yes, because
Okay, so just wanted
it's
to-
one lot with two existing legal homes on it, or legal dwelling units. Both are connected to the sewers. They want to subdivide the lot into 3 lots.
Right.
And it's a policy requirement that the lots need to be existing prior to the adoption of the policy for it to be able to be approved. So
Right.
that's the issue. It's
Yeah.
it's the third lot that they need. The 2 are permitted already. The third lot needs a waiver per the strict reading of the sewer policy.
Right. Okay.
So it was split 1 and 1? Is that Patrick and Emma?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. That was one reason why you didn't support this, the staff didn't support it. Where is the inflow and infiltration now? Is that below
Well,
the
it's-
85%?
We are, as of right now, the most recent 3-year running average through April 30th is 83.5%.
83.5, okay, so we're
That's of
under-
our leased and owned capacity.
So it's
Okay.
not 85.
So we're 1.5%
not.
under our capacity, all right. Yeah, now, from what I understand, they were denied a sewer permit from the state, correct?
They've provided documentation of
Septic.
they performed a soil evaluation test, and they have submitted that
But
report.
they were
in
denied by the
support.
state, because they had sewer out front.
I don't believe they were denied. I think all they did was get I believe the applicant is here and has their engineer here that can attest to what the documents that they have, but they provided the soil evaluation test, which came up with the seasonal high water table was at the existing ground surface, which I believe would prevent, that is what they're
Okay,
saying, would
because it was
prevent.
based because they had a high water table.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to get it.
Do you know what that was? How many inches that was?
It's the report in the packet says 0 inches to ESHW.
How much?
0 inches.
0, wow, so it's pretty wet over there, right? So is it, I don't know, I've been on the sewer committee quite a while, and, the reason we have sewers is for lots specifically like this. I mean, I know it's not an existing lot, but they did a minor subdivision, correct?
That's what they're
Right.
applying for, and
They
they
went
need
through
to.
the process, and they were denied because they weren't an existing lot. But they can't get a septic system from the state because it's too wet. So, to me, I can support hooking up the sewers to this particular property. All right, because, we're in the pier. I mean, if it couldn't support a raised septic system, then, it demands, for me, it demands sewer. So I have no problem, approving this waiver.
I agree. Would that be a cost of the applicant? Would they have to pay?
Yeah, I think, what is that, 3,500?
Yeah.
They,
And
yeah,
it's-
they would be, the INI fee and the sewer lot development fee would apply to the additional lot. The other 2 lots are already
Yeah,
permitted.
it's
so
under like
it's,
$5,000 or something like that.
And it's at 83.5%, and it's supposed to be 85, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Supposed
but,
to be 85,
but there's
so-
another factor here that I think is really important, and I'm just going to read this from what we have. It says, per the sewer policy, sewer capacity is reserved for projects that provide affordable housing opportunities under the town's affordable housing plan or some measure of commercial or industrial growth, and for failed onset wastewater treatment systems, and it remains the opinion, this is John's opinion, of this office that our limited available capacity be reserved for true hardships, cases of compelling public good, or waivers that provide a tangible benefit as described within the current sewer policy. So I think, 83.5 is pretty darn close to 85. And with that was the piece that made me think that this is not a great idea. So
Well,
I'll
later on in the meeting tonight, we're going to approve continued negotiations with URI to lease out capacity, correct?
to continue the
Is
current
that
lease
moving
conditions
forward? Is that
and
what's pretty
negotiate.
positive?
The next agenda item is to continue the lease for another year while we negotiate to see if we can get more capacity.
And how much was that a day? Was it a couple hundred, 200,000 or
It's
400,000?
200,000 is the lease
200,000.
amount.
Okay, so that should bring us down to what, that 85 should drop down to like 75.
No, that's.
Approximately?
No, that includes the 200,000.
Yeah.
All we're doing, the agenda item is to
We already have it.
maintain what our
Contingent.
current lease is, yeah, without any
Weren't we gonna
increase.
try to get an extra 200,000?
Yes, we are, but URI, there wasn't sufficient time to be able to negotiate and come to an agreement by the time this lease, by the time the current lease expires, which is June 30th. So, and if we don't extend the lease, then we're kind
Right,
of in
right.
non-compliance with other terms and
But
conditions
they were
of our
opposed
agreements.
to getting another 200,000?
They aren't opposed to giving an additional 200,000, but there are different parties involved over it there, and there's new personnel involved over there
We don't
that
know
are not familiar with it enough, and they wanted to have another year to be able to look at it so we can all come to an agreement and possibly have just a long-term, even longer than 5-year agreement.
Right, well,
So it's not a done deal, right?
yeah.
It's
Well,
not.
there's also an environmental component, but the environmental component falls to the wayside because they can't put in a septic system. So,
For the third house, but the other two houses would have,
yeah.
would be
But
on
they did a
sewer.
minor subdivision, and under the ordinance for, you know, I mean, this is just to me, it's semantics, you know?
Well, I voted, so I was the one that voted no for it because I tried to stay consistent with the sewer policy and I didn't see a hardship. And it is a new development, a new subdivision, new house on that property that had 2 sewers for that lot. And so I want to see houses that are existing or areas that really need sewer and for environmental reasons. You know, like example, Harbor Island, we're on septic. And, you know, with the sewer capacity being where it's at, I mean, that's not going to allow for an expansion of that. So that's kind of where when I review these, I look at that. Is there a need? And we had another issue with the 1 sewer to 5, and then we voted that down. Oh, that was a split, I believe, a split decision, you know, for the sewer committee as well. So again, I'm staying consistent with my voting and just addressing it and looking at the sewer policy and whether it meets the criteria for that.
John, we also investigating and going after stormwater, infiltrating the
Yes, we have.
sewers, we're bringing, which is pushing up. our,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
our
where
capacity. It's
the.
giving us a false capacity, correct?
Well, the stormwater infiltration, that's the biggest challenge we have, especially here in the Pier area, and we're continuously looking at trying to track that down and identify it and eliminate it.
So we get some, might drop that 83.5 in addition, and hopefully we get some more capacity from URI.
And I know, like I said, the applicant did request to have this postponed so that they could perform those soil evaluation tests and have that information available. That was not available at the time of the first hearing with the Sewer Policy Committee. So that, you know, that would be considered a hardship.
Right.
Again, it's not the same hardship as with an existing property with a failed
Right.
septic or something like that, but there is an impediment to them being able to
Technically, it is a
provide that
hardship
lot,
under the
but-
guidelines of,
that would
sewer
be considered
policy.
hardship, but again, it's not the same hardship, and I can't approve the hardship. That's the policy decision for the
Right.
council and the Sewer
Well-
Policy Committee.
well, we have sewers. I mean, let me see, I forget the formula. 1% of sewers, I forget how many homes that is. I think it was probably about 25 homes, something like that. Anyway, and let's not go down that road. Again, I have no problem with this, granting this waiver, so these folks can move on.
John, do you mind? I just want to kind of just recap it, just to make sure I understand the situation fully. So Gibson Ave property, it was 2 lots, and it was not 2 lots.
It's one lot.
Just
right now.
one?
Yes.
Okay, now it's been,
Two existing dwellings on the one lot that both have service.
and both on sewer, and then they've divided part of that property to make a 3rd lot.
They're proposing to subdivide the lot.
Proposed.
Which I believe it does not need any waivers or special exemptions for zoning lot. I believe the lot sizes will meet the current zoning.
And that has gone through and been approved in outstanding of the sewer. Has that been approved by zoning?
I believe that the planning, the zoning department is ready to approve it, but I'm not certain as if there's other conditions. But I think that's the main impediment is the sewer. It has to be a developable lot, which means it has to have either sewer or ISDS or OWTS.
But it doesn't need any variances or anything like that?
I do not believe so. I believe it
Right.
could be approved otherwise.
Okay.
I mean, the applicant, I
John,
believe, is
this
here.
lot is located in the middle of those two houses, correct?
I believe so, yes.
So, and one of the things that, I mean, you just said that the inability to install a septic system is the hardship. You know, when we had a similar, not similar, but we had a higher profile application come to the town council within the last year, which was the Clark Road development. And one of those issues that we brought up was that they hadn't yet gone to the state with their plans for septic and been rejected. And they were saying, well, we have this hardship, but they didn't really, because they hadn't got that rejection. In this case, they've gotten the rejection. So like if they could put septic in, then we would say, put the septic in. You know, this lot could be approved through planning and zoning, but you have to do a septic. They can't do that. So they've gone through, it seems like this process is following just as it should. It's not affordable housing. However, we do need additional housing stock in town, I think. And although this would not be affordable, someone's gonna live there. And if someone doesn't live there, they're gonna potentially buy a house somewhere else in town. So you have to increase stock in general, I think. I'd like to hear more from the public, but
Well, I believe the applicant and his son are gonna live in the father's gonna live in one house, the son's gonna live in the other house. Is that correct? Yeah, so I mean, these are people who bought this property to develop, to make, a minor subdivision, a family compound in the pier, and to me, this one's a no-brainer. I don't understand. I know it's semantics with the zoning but they got the minor subdivision, they have an approved lot, it's well within the parameters of the zoning. So, I mean, to me, it's just semantics.
I agree.
why don't we, if that's okay with everyone on the council, we'll go to the public?
Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you, John.
You're going to run out of
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
It's
almost
okay.
8.
Oh, all right, we will go to our public hearing, and then we'll come back to this item, because it's almost 8, thank you. We've never had so many agenda items before, 8, so I'm not used to it. All right. Good, okay, thank you. All right, we're just gonna wait a few seconds till 8 o'clock exactly, so that we are in line with our advertisements for this one at 8. All right. Do we have a motion to open and hold a public hearing on an application from Margaret L. Hogan, Esquire, on behalf of Lucian and Claudia Raymondetta to amend the effective date of the Chapter 1087 zoning amendment, bulk zoning? Thanks. Amending Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Zoning.
I'll move the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so the public hearing is open. So this is I'll call you up in a second. So this is a request from an applicant to, again, change the effective date of the bulk zoning amendments that we had passed last year. It passed and it was effective upon approval, and the applicant is looking for a 60-day change to that effective date. Before we go to the applicant, does anyone on the council have anything they want to start with? No? Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Come on up. So if you want to introduce yourself?
I will indeed, thank you. Mr. Council President, members of the Town Council of Narragansett, my name is Margaret Hogan. I'm an attorney with a practice in Charlestown, Rhode Island, and I am representing the applicants here this evening. As the council president has just indicated, we have requested an amendment to an existing ordinance adopted basically a year ago this evening at your second June meeting. That particular ordinance changed dramatically the zoning regulations here in Charlestown, here in Narragansett, from what is most folks would call normal dimensional zoning regulations to the floor area ratio zoning ordinance. And in doing so, I believe the council may have unintentionally negatively affected property owners without realizing that. So what I'd like to do is start with my explanation and overview. I do have with me this evening the Ramondettas. They're here in for vacation at their home on Greenbrier. And I also have David Zoglio, who was their potential builder for the property. The overall purpose of the ask this evening is to allow the Ramondettas to be able to file their application under the old regulations, because it would allow a period of 60 days from the date that you adopted the ordinance last year to the effective date. The good public policy behind that type of an amendment is that most laws and ordinances, when adopted, do have a phase-in period or an effective date. Our General Assembly is meeting tonight and adopting lots of laws as we sit here, and a good chunk of those you're going to find are effective January 2023. It's good public policy to adopt ordinances in that fashion. I understand, based on my conversations both with Mr. DeLuca and the Planning Board, that they felt there was a need to move more quickly, and that this is an ordinance that had been under consideration for quite some time. In the memorandum that Mr. Fleming has submitted to the Town Council in support of their recommended denial of our request, it points out that the ordinance was initially drafted in a very quick 6-week period at the end of 2019 to the early 2020, when the town was facing, apparently, applications for enormously oversized dwellings that were causing a lot of impact to areas of the town and that were being used basically by as mini boarding houses, if you will. And there was an urgency to put a stop to that. I can't disagree with that need or that approach. What I do disagree with, though, is the impact that it's had on the smallest properties, and I'm going to get into those impacts in a little while. Alternatively, we would ask the council, if it is not willing to adopt our request, that it consider amending the request to adopt it for dwelling units, for the extension of the 60 days, for dwelling units 4 bedrooms or less, because that makes it clear that the impact to the town that you were trying to prevent can still, in fact, be prevented, even if there were people who had applied for the 8-bedroom houses sometime in that 60-day period. And alternatively, if the council were not willing to adopt either of those, we would ask the council to direct the planning board and the planning department to revisit this issue and the impact to the dwelling units that are on lots that are substantially smaller than the 20,000 square feet. What I'd like to start now with is a very important point. The Ramondettas' existing home with 2 bedrooms and 2 baths and 1,095 square feet of living space.
How much is that?
1,095 square feet of living space. This is their present dwelling.
Too bad.
And it has a 31% lot coverage. Under the proposal that they had submitted, their lot coverage would have been brought down to 26%. But under the bulk regulations, the total existing square footage, which includes the decks, unfinished spaces, and 2,217 square feet, if you take everything including living and unliving space, or non-living, if you will, There's a current floor area ratio of 0.61, or 61%. But when you apply the new regulations, which is the ratio of the 0.45, because it's a lot of 3,600 square feet, it means they're only allowed a floor area ratio of 0.45. They must actually reduce their existing cottage by 27%. At this time, I'd like to submit to the council for your review and consideration a copy of the tax card, which shows the photo of the existing dwelling. And I'll give one to council and bring it up if I could.
Thank you.
I'd like to mark that as applicants 1, please. This is a home that's been built since 1935 or 36 approximately, so close to 90 years. It's developed in consistency with the neighborhood, and the question that really jumps off the page at us is, why would a property owner have to reduce the size of a modest dwelling that's been located in Narragansett neighborhood for close to 100 years in order to bring their home up to modern building codes and improve their comfort and livability? Clearly, a home of this size and the size that was proposed, which was a total of 2,500 square feet, I don't believe is the kind of dwelling unit that this council was trying to regulate and prohibit. In the memorandum from the planning chairman, there were a few questions that were asked I'd like to address. The first one is, why the request for 60 days, not more or less? And what does that have to do with equitable relief in general? Our answer to that is, clearly the applicant has in fact chosen a date that would provide relief to him personally. He's advocating here tonight for himself primarily. That's not a secret. That's what this purpose is for. He's the one to have made the application and paid the filing fees. The 60 days was chosen by me as his attorney as a way to balance the equities for those who were near to filing their building permit applications with the town's need to stop or stall the mega homes. However, to the extent that there are others similarly situated, this brief adjustment of the effective date would in fact similarly benefit them. We are personally aware of at least one other property owner with a similar problem, and as I mentioned earlier, 30-day increments and 60-day increments are common with implementing new laws. Second question that the memo asked was, if the applicant's builder had constructed 13 homes in Narragansett during the previous 3 years as noted, how did he miss the very public implementation of the 11-month-long building moratorium? I do have the builder here this evening. We're going to address that question for you. I would tell you that as a land use practitioner, I was unaware of the moratorium, and I was unaware of that this ordinance was being promoted. You'll recall that it was during COVID. However, in recent years, I've not practiced much before Narragansett because your land use boards have conflicting meeting dates with other municipalities in which I practice pretty heavily. Quite frankly, my review of cursory of the Narragansett Times and the Independent was such that I believed that the big fight in Narragansett was over the 3-student versus 4-student ordinance. And the other kinds of fights we were having here were over your library. So I wasn't aware that you were proposing a whole new type of a zoning ordinance. I will also say that I am surprised, and I mean no disrespect to the planning department, but I am surprised that the planning department did not reach out to the land use professionals, the attorneys, the builders, the surveyors, the designers, the septic people, to discuss this kind of an ordinance. It's a huge impact, it's a big change, and you normally would have a stakeholder process. Perhaps the planning board felt they were conducting a stakeholder process amongst themselves, and I do not fault and I do not say that the planning board did not properly advertise or post their proper open meetings, et cetera. I've never suggested that. There seemed to be some defense in the memo about that. I've never suggested that. What I have said is that, publicly held meetings are most effective when the people who are affected by it are aware of those ordinances and those meetings. And of course, we all know that the Zoom environment was a difficult one for a lot of people to maneuver. Many times you had people who had difficulty trying to get onto meetings. I'm not saying that was the case here. We didn't know about it. Had I known about it, I certainly would have been on some of those meetings. The next question was, what resolution does the applicant propose for those individuals who filed building permits between June 21 and August 20 of 2021, who did comply with the design limitation standards of the FAR and other provisions adapted in the ordinance? And I would just very simply submit that the applicant does not propose anything. Why would he? If the other applicants for building permits were content to revise or adopt and comply with the ordinance, so be it. We find that it's a near impossibility, you're going to hear testimony, a near impossibility to comply with this ordinance and still have a usable dwelling. Finally, and this irritates me, there was a statement that this was not the highest priority of the applicant. Memo states that because submitting the request 11 months after the ordinance is adopted was, quote, a sign this was not the highest of importance to the applicant, end quote. Well, I will also have the applicant address this claim. I can assure you most wholeheartedly this is not the case. The applicant was stunned in August 12th, I believe it was, to find out that his application, which he'd been working on for the better part of, I think, 20 months, 18 to 20 months, was not allowed to be accepted. He immediately reached out to area legal counsel. When I returned from vacation, I met with him at the end of August. We began working on a strategy to try to figure out what to do. The time for appeal, even if we could file an appeal, had long since passed. So we did undertake a process by which the applicant sought relief from the various elements. However, there were 5 variances that were needed as a result. And we applied to the zoning board, but you have to go through the planning board first to get an advisory recommendation. And it was wholeheartedly and 100%, 5-0, recommend denial for any relief to the applicants whatsoever. Even something as simple as a parking relief. Right now, they have an area in front of their home, which is the only place to park. There's no way you can get with a vehicle to the back of the dwelling on either side, and the only place that you can park is in the front. So they're here tonight. They've got 2 grown sons, and they park their vehicles in the front of the dwelling unit. They're not allowed to do that any longer, except for a very small area, and they've got to put all this softscape in. There's just physically no way to accomplish this. I would say also, and upon information and belief, that this was the first request for relief after the new ordinance was adopted. And the planning board was hostile, respectfully so, but hostile to any relief and recommended denial in all respects. We'll address this further, as I've said, but the proposed plans for a home totaling 2,504 square feet. I just can't fathom that this council intended for that to be the result of this particular ordinance. Also in the memorandum, there were items addressed, which I also need to address before I bring up my witnesses for some testimony. Consistency with the comprehensive plan was questioned. We haven't proposed any changes to the ordinance with the exception of the effective date. So all of the prior determinations by the planning board and by this council as to the consistency with the comprehensive plan stand. They don't need to be changed. The only proposed change, as I've said, is the effective date. Once again, it was stated in the memorandum as the rationale for its denial, and this was exclusively the rationale that's set forth in the memo, that found it hard to believe the applicant and others did not know about the ordinance. We're going to address that again. So the memo also indicates the ordinance was put on hold in 2020 during a lawsuit that the town was involved in, and then brought back in 2021. Sorry. There's no reference, if you will, as to what happened in the time from when the lawsuit put this on hold to the end of 2020, when it was re-energized, if you will, and then started to come back before the council. I did have the opportunity, and I took the time to view all of your YouTube videos of this council over this past winter, and your review of the proposed ordinance, your concerns, the iterations, and the conversations that you had with Mr. DeLuca. I'd like to note, particularly for the record, that I watched very carefully the presentation by Mr. DeLuca of the application of the FAR to, with visuals, if you will. And I think it was Mr. Murray who made a comment that he was concerned with, I don't want things being a pyramid, you know, we're going to have them smaller on the next floor and smaller on the next floor. I think it was him, but it could have been one of the others. And Mr. DeLuca, you know, shared with the council a schematic, if you will. What I'd like to note is, if my memory serves me correctly, and I believe it does, that those drawings that you viewed were of proposed dwellings and schematics on lots of 20,000 square feet. From what I can see, there's been no analysis of the actual impact to actual properties that are this size, 3,600, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. I also note, surprisingly, that the FAR requirements here differ from Breakwater Village, which I thought was unusual, and I'm not quite sure what the rationale is, and I just noticed that recently, and I haven't spoken to Mr. DeLuca about that, what the rationale was for that. But I find it problematic that you would have two kinds of FARs for zoning in an area that have similarly sized lots. So at this point, I'd like to bring up Mr. Zoglio, who's the builder, and take care of that testimony first, if I could, and I'm assuming he'll be sworn.
All right, Mr. Zoglia, welcome. Our town solicitor is going to swear you in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address.
David Zolio, 532 Big Water Road, South Kingstown.
Thank you.
So I've been massacring your name, I think. I apologize. Would you please, for the council, please state what your occupation is and come closer so that you pick up by the
Okay.
mic.
Yes, I'm the owner-operator builder of Coastal Modular Homes of Rhode Island, and we build mostly smaller homes in all over the state, but mostly in Narragansett and South Kingstown.
You heard me make representations to the council that you were not aware of this ordinance. You heard that representation?
Yes,
Okay, and we appeared before the planning board back in, I think it was November or December of 2021. Do you recall that evening?
yes,
Okay, and do you recall providing that same testimony to the planning board at that time?
yes.
Okay, and would you please tell the council what you knew when you knew?
I mean, I wasn't aware of it until after it passed. And I was shocked because at that particular time, we were building quite a bit in Narragansett. And I was in and out of the building department, you know, maybe at least once a week. And I just wasn't aware of it. Wasn't aware it was coming down. Because you know, obviously if I did, we would have made the proper recommendations to our clients, you know. And to be honest with you, you know, most of the houses we do build are small affordable homes. Most of our practice is taking down older beach homes and putting up new homes. That's what we do. So we're very familiar with the small lots, and we're very respectful of the small lots. We don't try to build anything that's out of the ordinary. We're not building mansions. And I would say 90% of our customers in Narragansett do not rent. In fact, I've only had one person really that rents. Everybody else uses the home as a summer home, a full-time home, or they go back and forth even in the wintertime. So,
You're familiar, are you not, with the interior layout of the property?
yes.
Okay, I'm going to show you a series of documents, series of photographs. This would be applicants 2A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H as a group. And I'll let them come up to the council once I've kind of gone through this. Would you take a look at that first photograph, and can you identify whether that's inside the Ramondetta home?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and what does that depict?
Ceiling height.
There's a gentleman standing there with his hands touching the ceiling, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Second photo, can you identify that?
Again, ceiling height in the sunroom.
Same gentleman?
Yes.
Same handsome devil?
Yes.
Third photograph is what?
Looks like the bathroom doorway.
Okay. Bathroom doorway. Next photograph,
Inside the bathroom.
okay? And is it depicting the distance between
The
the
sink
edge of the
and the
sink
wall.
and the
Yes,
wall?
yes.
They're touching, are they not, on his shoulders? Thank you. And this one,
Yep, sitting on the toilet.
sitting on the commode with the feet up on the edge
Touching
of the shower, is that
yeah.
correct?
Yep, feet don't reach.
The next photo, do you recognize this to be inside the Ramondetta home?
Yes,
Okay, and what does this depict?
touching wall to wall.
And that's the front unheated porch area, is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And this one?
Again, touching wall to wall. Yeah, in a bedroom, yes.
Touching wall to wall in a bedroom. And one more,
Ceiling height.
ceiling height
In the
again.
living room, I guess.
Okay, I'll bring those up to the council, if I could. Take a peek. Now, in regards to the particular dwelling, and I'm just going to talk about this for a couple of seconds, you've reviewed that home for possible renovation other than demolition, is that correct?
Yes.
And would just describe what the problem is with, let's say, the foundation in particular.
Well, it's a typical beach cottage, which most people are familiar with. It was very small when it was built and added on to over the years, and probably added on to without permits, because that's how they did things. So there are no foundations under, like, for example, the front looks like it was an old porch, so it probably has no real foundation under it, but now it's a part of the house, and same with the back. And, that's how those houses were done. We've taken many of them down like that. And it'd be very difficult to renovate it. You never say never. You could do anything at any price, but it'd be very, very difficult because it doesn't really have a central foundation. And again, just the way it was constructed over the years.
Are you familiar with it? It's a cinder block foundation?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions of this particular witness. Does the council wish to question him now or later?
I think you need smaller contractors.
What did you say?
I think you need smaller contractors. So, so you're going to bring in a modular home, so you're going to replace the foundation?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, so initially, you went from a two-bedroom and you want to go to a four-bedroom?
This is in the plan.
That's been the whole plan all the time?
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's all I got for now.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
You're excused. Lou?
Please raise your hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do, thank you.
Please state your name and address.
Lou Ramondetta, 2335 Stewart Avenue, Walnut Creek, California.
Thank you.
Mr. Ramondetta, welcome this evening.
Thank you.
You heard the representations earlier in regards to the 11-month issue, and you do not agree that the fact that we're here a year later from the adoption of the ordinance is any indication of how important this issue is to you. Do you agree with that?
No, this is incredibly important to me and my family. I mean, what you don't see behind the scenes is we spent hours and hours picking options and deciding what to do. We were amazed that a pretty normal house that's certainly not a McMansion, it's not big by any stretch of the imagination, that a house like this, which is fairly consistent with a lot of homes that are in our area, would not be approved. And since, well, first, when we were told that what we were told initially, because we were here in June of last year, what we were told initially was that there was something potentially happening. They didn't know what it was, and they didn't know whether it was going to affect us. And it took quite a few weeks after, I think it was into July or August, before we really understood that these restrictions would impact us. Then we had to try to figure out what to do. And that's when we got Maggie involved to see if we could, try to get some legal direction on what we should do. But again, this is, yeah.
Okay, so did I hear you say in your initial opening that you reside in California? Is
Yes.
that correct? Okay, and did you have any advance notification in California that this kind of a zoning ordinance was being considered by Narragansett?
So just to let the town council know, I got a loan. We refinanced our house in January of 2021, and we pulled money out of the property. The loan closed in, I think, April of 2021. And we have been paying now for a year and a half on a loan that's completely worthless because we had expectations that the property would be starting construction probably in the fall of 2021, so September, sometime after that time frame. So we had no indication whatsoever from anybody we talked with, whether it was the building, whether it was Dave, or whether it was the surveyor or anybody, that this ordinance was coming down, or for that matter, anything in our plans, because our plans are not unique. I mean, we're not building anything different than what's already there.
Okay, let's talk about the existing dwelling. Can you identify for the council when you purchased the current dwelling?
So we've been coming to Narragansett. My aunt has a cottage here. She's had a cottage here since the 70s, and both my wife and I are from Connecticut. All of our family is here, cousins, uncles, aunts, friends. We've been coming to my aunt's place since the 70s. I wanted to have a place that we could essentially be a central location for our family to come together. And we purchased the property, actually the neighbor next door, her father owned our property. They sold that to us, and we purchased it in 2007. Quite frankly, nearly lost the property through the financial crisis. We did everything we could do to hold on to it because we really wanted to have a place to stay. And we, again, I think have been here, and we come here regularly every year. We stay for a significant amount of time. So this is important to us.
So you're familiar with the photographs that I provided to
Yes.
the council because you took them this afternoon with your son, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And do those photographs fairly depict the interior of your residence?
Yeah, so I think the challenge we have with our property is that, it was built in 1935. It's almost 90 years old. There's not a lot that we can do with the property other than essentially build something completely new. Because of the way it's structured and because of the carrying beams and all of that, we can't remodel it. So we're limited right now. You can see the bathrooms are incredibly small. You can see that the front room is very small. The kitchen is tiny. I mean, it was built at a time when people built houses and they didn't have open concepts. They didn't have, appropriately sized kitchens. They didn't have appropriately sized bedrooms. The ceiling, we don't have any ceilings in our house that are 8 feet tall. So every ceiling is about, 7, a little bit above 7 feet tall. It's just not what people do now. So we're trying to, obviously modernize it to something that's more acceptable to the neighborhood.
So, Mr. Ramondetta, would you agree with me with a description of basically cottage campy?
Cottage campy.
Campy style,
Oh, yeah.
And that was consistent with the era in which it was built, was
Yeah.
it not?
Yeah,
And you're in a neighborhood with similarly sized lots, are you not?
yes. So
Okay.
most of the neighbors around us have very similar lots.
Okay. I've submitted, along with your application to the council's consideration, a selected highlight of project timelines. I didn't include every email that you ever went through because we'd be here for pages. But I've represented here that you started in approximately December of 2019, and it expanded the period up until August 8th, or actually August 3rd, when you had the problem with a slab fabricator.
Yes.
And then you filed your building permit application on August 8th of 2021,
Yes,
correct? Is that it? Is that a fair and accurate representation of the time frame that
Yes.
you were involved in this? And during that time, you didn't have any idea that your life was about to change?
I may not be the smartest person in the world, but I certainly would not have got a loan for a property that we weren't going to be building, so no.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the changes, if you will, or the things that you're going to lose were you to comply with tearing this down and building under the FAR ordinance. Let's talk about the basement. Are you going to be able to have, you don't have one now, but would you be able to have one?
So my understanding, underneath the new FAR requirements, we lose a significant amount of square footage versus what we could have had. And the basement, from what I understand, if it's more than, I think, 7 feet, it's considered living space. Obviously, on a house that size, we want to have a basement so we can store stuff in there. But it sounds like we can't have a basement.
In regards to the current dwelling, you asked me prior to the meeting this evening, was the room that your son sleeps in actually considered a bedroom? And we've determined that it is not under the town's
Yes.
tax thing. It's probably not big
It's not
enough
even a room,
to be but it's being used as a bedroom, is that correct?
That's actually one of the pictures that you have there where he's reaching across the bedroom with the paneling.
And what is your goal for the property? Would you describe that for the council, please?
The goal as far as,
What were you trying to achieve with this construction?
we're just trying to, we should probably swear on my wife for that. We're just trying to, we want a place where we can come with our family, where we can stay for a long period of time. We've reached, I don't want to say I'm old, but we've reached an age where we can afford to do this. We want to have a central place where we can come a lot more often. From what I understand with the new FAR restrictions, now we have to build a 3-story house, which means our living area would be at the top of the house. So every time we go in and out the door, we have to go up and down 3 flights of stairs. That's ludicrous. I mean, I can't imagine that the town would want to be punitive against homeowners just trying to build a house that their family can come to on a regular basis. The house that we were proposing would have had a great room up above for our family to, sit down and watch TV. We had a nice deck to overlook the ocean. We just want, we want what, quite frankly, a lot of people in our neighborhood have done. In our neighborhood is not a neighborhood that has issues with students or damage or anything. Most of the people who live in our neighborhood are full-time people, or they're there on a very regular basis. Whether it be winter or summer, they're there very regularly.
Do you have any concerns about the fire code?
So another concern that we have is, again, the house is almost 90 years old. I don't know whether you guys follow it, but in our neighborhood, there's been a lot of fires. There's been a number of houses that have caught fire. I can think of 4 just in the last year or 2. And, when you're looking at 90 years old and you're looking at wiring that's 90 years old, potentially there could be an issue down the road with that. So that's a concern for us. Not only that, but I would imagine there's a ton of codes that if it was to be built today, it wouldn't come close to meeting. So, we're also trying to upgrade the neighborhood. I mean, do you really want to have a cottage there that's, what's, 11, would you say 1,100 square feet, that, you know, you can barely use, that's essentially functionally obsolescence. And does that really help the neighborhood? I don't think it does. If you look at houses near us that have rebuilt, I've done a Zillow search, and I think one of you is a real estate person. I mean, those houses have gone up significantly in value. And what this is doing to us is it's punitively, and you may be getting into this, I don't know, but it's punitively restricting us to not be able to essentially do anything to our house, which means I would just say, we're gonna go buy another house, we'll rent this forever, which is exactly what you don't wanna have happen, but that's kind of what we would end up having to do.
Mr. Ramadana, if you're able to speak a little bit closer to the mic, I want to make sure everyone on YouTube can hear it. Thanks.
Can you talk about the sunroom and the impact to your sunroom?
So underneath the current FAR, we lose the great room that we were gonna have on the third floor. We lose the sunroom. The sunroom now is where we spend, you know, 80–90% of our time. We're always in there. That goes away. We were hoping to have 4 bedrooms because my wife has parents that are older. We wanted them to come stay with us. Right now, today, she has her sister and my 2 nieces that couldn't stay with us. They're renting a house on Knowles Way because they can't even stay with us because there's no room in our house to fit them. I mean, that's not what we want. We want a place where family can gather.
And in regards to the tenant issue, if you will, the builders just indicated that the bulk of the homes that he has built are not for rental. What is your intention in that regard?
So what we wouldn't, I mean, we've rented the property. Renters are, let me put it this way. We had a sofa that we bought 3 years ago that we just threw out to the trash yesterday. They picked it, or today they picked it up. You know, the sofa we have at our real house has been there for 15 years. So we don't have, if we're gonna remodel the house, we don't have any intention to rent it. Also, I wanna point out something else on the FAR. My understanding from Dave is the way the restriction works is the first level, we would have to put, so we can get 3 or 4 bedrooms, that would be the first level. The second level has to be 40% the size of the first level, which means our living area with our kitchen, our dining room, our family room, a bathroom, everything where the family sits is up on the 3rd floor, and it's 40% smaller than the lower level. That's, I don't get it.
Okay.
Is
there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I mean, we're hoping that you guys will have some support, some remedy, some understanding of the fact that this has impacted us significantly. I mean, if I had built this house a year ago, if I had built this house a year ago, it would cost me it's gonna cost me about twice as much now to build it because of what's happened with housing prices. So for me to build it now, the prices have gone up dramatically. This has had a huge impact on us, and I'm carrying a loan for it. You know, we're talking about we have attorneys. I mean, this, just to build what we already had, or not what we had, but what's in the neighborhood that's accepted. It doesn't seem fair, it seems punitive, and it seems restrictive on homeowners. It's as though, because of issues with other people who are building 8-bedroom houses, or because of student issues, you're coming after, you know, small, I don't mean you, but we're trying to come up with something to control that, but it's affecting homeowners. We're losing 80% of our property value. We can't do anything to this house. You basically were just telling me the property you have, you're stuck with it forever, and you can't do anything, because it would be ludicrous for anybody to buy the property or redo it if it's gonna be the same size or smaller. It doesn't make sense. That's not why people redo stuff. They wanna get a little bit better, something nicer, and that's also what improves the value of the neighborhood. So, anyway.
One more follow-up for you is that at the beginning of my questioning of you, I was talking about the suggestion made by the memorandum that the fact that you're here a year later, that this was not an important issue to you. Is it not a fact that you specifically asked me to have this public hearing conducted while you were here in the state of Rhode Island? And
Yeah, I mean,
please explain why.
I mean, again, we were talking about doing this about 6 months ago, right? And I was going to fly out here on my own. We really wanted to have the whole family come here because I think, they also, this is important to them, so we wanted them to have an opportunity to also speak. But, this is important to us. It's not a question of flights or money or whatever. I mean, there was a lot that we were doing behind the scenes with Maggie, trying to figure out what to do, what our options are. I mean, quite frankly, fighting City Hall is not easy. This ordinance has been passed. We've talked to attorneys. They've told us there's not a lot you can do. It is what it is. And we're sitting here with an investment that we made, a long time ago, and it's, significantly now decreased in value. Not only us, but every single neighbor in our neighborhood who ever wants to do something to their house is going to have the same issue that we're having. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
Do you want to have Claudia?
No, I'm just to see if the council has any questions of you while you're up here.
Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Go ahead.
I just had a quick question for, so Ms. Hogan, when were you hired to represent?
I first became involved in August of 2021 when I went to the property for the first time. I believe we made our application in October-ish, somewhere in that time frame, and we were heard by the planning board in December, I believe.
Thank you.
Patrick?
Yeah, Mr. Romandetta, right. Okay, so the new proposed house, you're going from 1,100 to 2,500? The original plan?
Actually, if you include, I don't want, I'll let Dave maybe be able to answer. My understanding is if you
Just a
add in
ballpark.
the sunroom, which isn't heated, and the front porch, which isn't heated, the square footage is higher than that. But we are going to, I believe, about 2,500 square feet.
living space.
But for living space,
Right.
again, that's on 3 floors. So
Right,
the first floor would
exactly.
be
Yeah.
kitchen,
Yep.
family room. Second floor would be all bedrooms. Third floor is just kind of a great room with a sunroom.
Understood. But right now, under the current FAR, you're restricted to 800.
Underneath the current FAR, my understanding is we can't even get what we have
Right.
currently.
Yeah, you won't
and-
even make the 1,100, you have to step down to 800 square feet of living space because of the size lot.
Yeah, and we lose parking. So
Right.
from what I understand from Dave, we can get parking. That means we have to make the first floor a garage.
Right.
I don't know why anybody would have a garage at the beach, but we would have to make the first floor a garage, and then we'd have to go up again, more steps.
Right, okay. I'm going to ask a personal question. You don't have to answer this now. How much do you believe you have spent going through this process to date, from the beginning to today?
Oh, God.
You can say it or not say it. It's kind of personal, but I think,
If you add it all up,
yeah.
are you talking like solid money, or are you talking
I
time
think
and?
out-of-pocket expense to get to this process and get to today, just to work on property that you already own.
I mean, the loan alone is, I think, $7,000 or something like that a month, just for the loan. So that doesn't even include anything else.
Right.
Right now, that's invested in stock, which means it's virtually worthless because of the stock market. And then, we spent quite a few $1,000s with the builder initially. We spent quite a bit with the attorney. We've invested with the surveyor. We've invested trips coming out here because we can't really pick stuff easily from the West Coast, so we've flown out to look at, stupid things like, floors. Do you want a tile floor or do you want a wood floor? How wide do you want the wood floor? What color do you want the wood floor? All of those decisions can be incredibly involved. So we've flown out multiple times for that. I mean, that's thousands of dollars. I don't know, I couldn't,
At least 50.
yeah.
At
I mean,
least
it's
50.
it's a lot of money,
Okay.
yes. And then plus, to my point, we are, housing prices are going up astronomically. The cost of construction, the cost of lumber has gone up astronomically, and, what we would have spent, a fair amount of money for now is going to be probably at least double of what we were looking at.
Understood.
Anything
I just
else?
had a quick question, sorry. So you stated that you have family living here, and is your family living year-round here in
So-
Narragansett?
My aunt has had a cottage here since probably 72 or something like that on Harbor Island. So they aren't full-time, but they're here a lot. So she runs a business. She actually runs a business called Aaliyah. It's in all the Safeways. They do specialty foods. And, she now works from home, so she's at the beach a lot. And then we've got a lot of friends here that we see on a regular basis. We've got friends in Middletown. We've got friends just over the border in Massachusetts. So we've got, and then all of my family is here. Not here in Rhode Island, but they're in Connecticut. All of my wife's family is here. Her sisters are relatively local, so we have a lot of family in the area. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bought a house
So
here.
nobody really brought this up to you because this was a really hot issue. This is my first term on the council, and in 2019, when we were all campaigning, it was, like you said, the library. It was 3-student ordinance, and it was also bulk zoning, and that's something that the council prior to me was addressing. So it was constantly in the news, in the media, in the newspapers, and covered. So that's why I was asking if you had family here, because it was like any in the newspaper, that was what they asked the candidates about bulk zoning. It was, we had workshops, we had the candidate forums. So that was my question. So I was curious because I know it seems like you were blindsided by this, but I don't understand because it was always out in the open and in the public about the fact that the council was working on bulk zoning.
I can tell you, right now, we're working with 3 real estate people to look at properties. As I said, we'll probably, if we don't do this, we're going to rent this 100% of the time. And every real estate person, one of the people that we work with is a part-time real estate person. She also manages one of the Melgies, and she knows everybody. And when I told her about this, she had no idea about it. And the other 2 real estate people had no idea about it. What they said to me is, oh yeah, that's the 3-bedroom thing. And I said, no, this is not the 3-bedroom thing, this is a FAR. And their answer is, what is the FAR? And then I had to go through and explain it. So I'm sure, I've been on councils and committees and boards. I'm sure you've done, and the zoning board has tried to do the best they can from a due diligence perspective. But at the end of the day, people have lives. I mean, people go to school, they go to college, they go to work, they have to deal with financial issues, they have to deal with COVID, they're stuck in their houses, they're worried about security, they don't want to leave the house. So most people probably, even though what you do is very important, most people probably aren't following that on a day-to-day perspective unless it affects them. It affected us. We didn't know anybody, nobody that we were talking to made the slightest inclination that this would be a potential issue. Again, if they had, it would have made no sense for me to get a loan it eventually went through in April. It just would make no sense. I mean, why would I do that?
Patrick, you have one more question? And then we'll go to Susan and Deb.
Let me just add, the only reason we didn't submit earlier is we kept going back and forth on plan revisions, and I believe Dave can maybe elaborate on this, but he was waiting. The original survey was done in June of 2021. Now, I don't know how long it takes a survey to come back, but normally a survey, what's that? 20. Normally it takes a survey, I would imagine, a few months to come back. I remember when we were talking to surveyors, because we talked with a few of them, they were all very busy. But we didn't get the final survey information until, was it June or something of 2021? So he was planning to put the plans in, but he was still waiting for some final survey information. Otherwise, we would have had the plans in long ago. So it's not as though it was an issue on our end. We were waiting for the surveyor. He took a year to finish the survey, which to me is crazy, but that's what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, just one question. If you had some type of release between the town and yourself and your family, would you agree to like not rent the property for 30 years and just keep it in your family?
Yeah, I don't think we don't have an intention to rent it, so I don't
And be on
plan
your
to-
deed where you couldn't rent it, and if you sold it, they couldn't rent it? Is that
Yeah.
something you'd be on board with?
That wouldn't be an issue for us.
Okay, thank you.
Again, I'm not going to put money into, all new furniture,
Right.
cabinets, cherry cabinets and granite and have to deal with renters. And we don't have to, frankly, when I bought the house, that was a different story. At this point, I don't have to rent it.
Right.
And we wouldn't. So that's not our intention.
All right, Susan?
I just have a procedural question. You went to the planning board, and it was 5-0, not in favor. Just curious why you didn't then go to the zoning and came to the council. I'm just procedurally trying to, usually it goes to the planning and then zoning. Just curious on why it's in front of the council tonight and not in the zoning.
So that was my recommendation to the client, that the writing on the wall was pretty clear, and that he was not going to be successful at the zoning board for any of the relief that he was sought. Same solicitor serves both boards. That solicitor was clearly opposed and recommended to the planning board that it deny, or make a recommended for denial. So what's the point in going forward
Well,
to beat your head against the wall?
I don't really love that answer. I mean, that's a big assumption, I think, really. I was just curious procedurally, again, planning and then zoning. So you chose not to go to the zoning because you assumed you were going to get a negative response.
I believe it was a foregone conclusion, yes.
Oh, that's really unfortunate. Okay, thank you for your
That's also
response.
based on years of practice.
Also, I don't know if you read what the zoning people said. I'm sorry, was it zoning or? Planning. I'm not sure if you read what planning said, but they were adamantly opposed. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but in reading what they said, I wouldn't think that they would have changed their opinion. They voted 100%, 5 against, and it didn't sound like there was any interest whatsoever in any flexibility at all. So
I also have one more item to add to that, and that is during the course of the planning meeting, some of the planning members said, we feel for you to a degree. We don't really believe that you didn't know about this, but we feel for you to a degree. But this is the law. And the retort by someone was, go change the law. And I said, not a bad idea.
Okay, Susan, anything else?
No, that's it.
Deb?
Thank you.
Nothing? Or go ahead. No, okay. Is there anyone else from the family that wanted to speak?
I think we're all set there. I do
Okay.
have a quick summation if we're at that point. I don't know if you have members of the public you want to do first, or?
I'm gonna speak, we'll go to the public, and then we can end with you if you like.
Great, thank you so
I
much.
think we should hear from DeLuca.
Well, can I speak and then we'll call DeLuca?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Thanks, thank you, Ms.
Take a
Hogan.
seat. Thank you.
We'll definitely go to the public, so everyone will get a chance to speak. So, again, it was a 5-0 decision in opposition from the planning board. So that was a very clear decision. That wasn't kind of wish-washy or a tough decision. That was a straight decision. And even a planning board member who voted no on these original amendments voted no on that application because of the consequences of changing the effective date. So, because what we're looking at here is it's not even about the amendments to zoning. It's really just about the effective date. What this is like so we have the mechanism for this. Like what this appeal is looking to do is look for multiple variances. So you guys, well, you're avoiding that. The mechanism says go to planning, go to zoning, and look for the variances that you need to be able to build what you want under our zoning regulations. But instead of doing that, you're skipping those bodies and going right to the council and not even asking us to change the details of our bulk zoning amendments, but to essentially give you like a individual variance by changing the effective date specifically for you. So it's kind of like a workaround here, because the council shouldn't even be involved typically in these kind of things. It doesn't even, a typical variance for building under FAR would never come to the council. It wouldn't even be here. So all we're talking about tonight is the effective date change, that request. That's all we should be talking about. We shouldn't really even be talking about the details because that's not even on the agenda. It's just about the date. So this was, I mean, I understand, I believe that you didn't know this. I totally understand that, especially being in California. You wouldn't be as tuned in to what's happening here. But we did start these discussions on the council level publicly, actually even before you ever even engaged Coastal Modular on this project. So we were discussing this before you had even started the design or even working with the builder. So that's 2 years, actually over 2 years of this being publicly discussed. We went through the proper procedure. We posted the agendas for every time we discussed this. We advertised the public hearings. At some point, it is the responsibility of the public to be aware of the laws. So, this is a case of being, ignorant of the laws, in the local laws, but you still have to follow them. And you can't break a law in a town. I mean, this is an ordinance, but you can't break a law and say, well, I didn't know about that law. You still have to, you're still gonna get the fine. You're still gonna get whatever the penalty is, whether you knew or not. But I think that, so what we're looking at is, actually, I'm not even gonna get into the size of the building. For me, the concern is, there's two concerns here. It has to do specifically with the effective date. So if we were to change that to benefit you specifically, then what we would have is applicants that applied for variances between when this was passed and now, and were rejected and then built based on the current bulk zoning amendment, the current FAR ratios. And then we go ahead and change the effective date for you. That would open, in my belief, I think that would open the town up to damages. So anyone who basically built a house less valuable than what they could have built under the old regulations. So then the town would be open, I think, for each individual instance where that happened for damages, because we basically made someone build something smaller than they could have before, which leads to a less valuable house. And then we'd be also open for lawsuits or requests to grant further effective date changes. So the only reason you're asking for 60 days is because you're in that window. But if you were 90 days out, you'd be asking for 90 days. So if someone's 120 days out, they're going to ask for that, because we would have just granted it to you. And it's arbitrary outside of the fact that that's when you put in your permit. But that's just the reality, I think. We spent 2 years going over this. We had specific intent for it. One of the goals of this is to actually stop like 3-story houses in neighborhoods like yours, because they just create a wall down the street on really small lots. And that sort of overdevelopment is what, is part of the intent of this. I know it sounds like, I completely understand your position, and I would feel the same way. But the effective date is when you pass the ordinance, and that's the way it works. I would say if you have an issue where you can't build at least what you have now as a newer home, the process would be to have that design and go through the process and ask for those variances to be able, you could just say, we're looking to build the same thing we have now, just with newer materials and newer engineering. And that would be something I think that these boards would be at least open to hearing. But the risk of changing the effective date is just, I think that's a real risk. The precedent that would set would be hard to defend, when you get additional requests. So those are my thoughts on it. Any other thoughts before we go to the public?
Yeah, I just want to talk with Mike.
Mike, do you mind coming up? Councilor Murray has some questions.
And Margaret, I want to commend you on the 60-day window there. I think that's brilliant. It's a lot better than going through planning and zoning 5 times. What'd you have, 5 variances you needed to get what you wanted? 5 different variances? Yes. My point is, the 60-day, to change the date to 60 days is a lot smarter than going through variance after variance after variance. I mean, that's one attorney that I've heard that, turned down a lot of money there. So, Mike, let me get to the point here. Sure. What's the difference between Breakwater Village and the rest of the town as far as FAR? I know the lots in Breakwater Village are much smaller,
Correct.
and they got a higher percentage rate for the lot size, correct?
Yes, on the smaller lot sizes, they get a slightly higher FAR. The reasoning is that there are many more very small lots in Breakwater Village, and some of them wouldn't be buildable if you didn't allow the FAR to go up to 0.6 or above.
Oh, higher, right.
So they're somewhat similar in that they both have a graduated FAR, and that means that it changes as the lot size gets larger, the FAR gets smaller.
Right.
So they are very similar, but I don't think anybody in this room that knows anything about Breakwater Village would consider that to be a typical neighborhood in town. It is very unique because of its own history.
Right.
So we feel very comfortable that we could defend that set of standards as being reasonable and acceptable and implementable in town for that particular area, separate from the rest of the town.
Okay. Now, as far as getting a variance from the FAR, have you had several people apply for a waiver or variance?
We have had only a few investigate the opportunity, and the Raymond debtors did apply. They would have been our first case to go through the process all the way. No one has gone all the way through the process yet.
Right. So you haven't had one variance granted since we
No.
implicated this? Not one person asked for a variance, okay. Would they ask?
Mr. Murray, just for the record, we haven't denied one either. There are a couple in the pipeline.
Right,
Now, when
okay.
I say we, the
All right,
zoning
all right.
board.
There are a couple in the pipeline.
So there's been no denials, but there's been no approvals either. But there are a
Okay.
couple pending.
All right.
Sorry, Steve. I just want to be
Thank you, Steve.
totally clear. There have been denials at the planning board level, though.
But not at the zone, those are
Right,
just the
yeah, not at
recommendations.
zoning yet.
Correct.
Well, if it gets denied at planning, it's a dead duck.
Planning is just a recommendation. It's
Right.
not binding on the zoning board.
All right, so there hasn't been any FAR relief to date, then?
Right.
Okay, all right. Now, we had a talk earlier tonight. You're going to make some changes or potential changes to the current FAR. Can you expand on that maybe a little and might give them some comfort?
Yeah,
that-
it's not necessarily completely relevant to this application. This is a hearing on a particular case. But as I mentioned to the council back in June, or actually it was, I think it was March or April last year when you were hearing these suggested text changes to the ordinance, that we knew it was a somewhat complex ordinance. We were changing 6 chapters within the ordinance, adding in some new definitions, tweaking the parking requirements, the FAR, a couple other sections, the new section that would allow for special use permit. And when you're looking at something that is that complex, it's not uncommon to experience some problems in real-world application. So I had said to you on the record that I expect that I'll be coming back to you next spring, meaning this year, with some ideas and some concerns about text that might need some improvement, upgrades, some things that people have run into some bottlenecks, in trying to plan and design within our first round, our first set of standards. So we have had that meeting. Council Bonanno, as well as the building official, Wayne Pimentel, co-sponsored a meeting where we had people in the, met in the boardroom right next door. We heard some good feedback, real good feedback from professionals in the field and from general public. We also had feedback from our own staff, my staff, fire marshal, building official, and we've assembled a list of issues that we want to investigate. I think we probably have, if I had to, I'm not going to get into the details, but I think if I had to summarize, I think there's about 15 different areas of concern. And of those 15, there's about 5 right off the bat that'd be pretty easy to implement. I'm in the process of putting that together to send it to you for informational purposes, not necessarily scheduling as yet, but to send you that information fairly soon. The other 10 need a little bit of work. Some of them may come forward fairly quickly in the next month or two. And then some of the others, the remainder, might take a few more months to investigate. And we're not necessarily sure that we're going to make all changes in all 15 areas, but we're going to look into them. Right. So, but I had mentioned that to you on the record, and we are where we are right now. So,
Mike, thanks for bringing that up, because that's important. I know that you had asked about meetings, and I think it's an important point that anytime we adopt an ordinance, it's not perfect, and we were open to feedback. We wanted to look at it, and I was appreciative of so many great ideas in the room and taking another look at it. I know it's going to go before planning. So I appreciate that, and it's not perfect, and I hear the frustration from these people tonight, but we're working towards making some modifications.
that's right.
All right, any other questions for Mike before we go to the public?
I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, great. Is there anyone from, thank you, Mike. Anyone from the public that would like to speak? If so, just raise your hand. We'll do in the back, and then I'll go to you, Al. Steve, we're going to have the solicitor swear you in.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Stephen Ferrandi, 44 Sylvan Road, Narragansett, Rhode Island.
Thank you.
Thank you, council members and staff. I'd like to read something, and then I can go into a little bit more detail of why I'm recommending not granting this. Council members, I'd like to express my opinion of not granting the application of 18 Greenbrier Road and changing the effective date of the bulk zoning implementation. Much time has been spent in this ordinance to ensure there is some balance in our Narragansett neighborhoods in terms of sizes and massing of houses on small lots. If this is granted, this goes to the very instance of why the bulk zoning ordinance was intended to address. Many of our neighborhoods were asking for some balance measures in terms of zoning for some 20 to 25 years. Many of our neighborhoods were asking for some balance measures, and only to fall on deaf ears from councils that were too slow to even understand the issues to address them. The previous council, has been stated before, has started the process in 2000, and your actions continued to complete some meaningful change in the zoning ordinance that I should be commended. Let's not go backwards and undo the good work of an outcomes that this ordinance is intended to affect. And Jesse, I certainly have an issue with the, in the council. Originally, it was according to what, the notes I took, about 1,095 square foot existing one-story building. Now, what the floor area ratio brings into the fact that that's probably on maybe 1.5 stories. With the height limit of 35 feet, you can build 33 stories on top of that. So the floor area ratio is, they're allowed at 1,620 square foot allowed. They're asking for, I believe, from one of the notes I saw, was 2,600 square feet. That's almost 3 times the size of what they were asking for. So you're not taking their rights away of building a home. They just have to stay within around 1,620 square feet.
Steve, I just want to add, it's hard to just use the one metric to come
No,
up
I
with the
agree.
number. There's different things. There's parking requirements,
Right, there's
softscape and
parking and
hardscape.
softscape
And that may cut into it as well. So we just don't want to state that that's
Right,
the number.
right. No, there's other elements to be involved.
Okay.
And I think the town is opening themselves up to a can of worms and basically saying, okay, let's stop the clock. Let's let these people have their permit. And then what happens to everybody else that was even thinking about building a bigger house and they didn't? Do they have a right to come back and build what they want? So I applaud the council for, passing the zoning ordinance amendment, bulk zoning, and to sticking to your guns, if I hope you will, and to deny this application. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ferrandi. Do you still want to speak? Dr. Alba? Yep.
Yes, Dr.
Please
Alba.
raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Dr. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace, Narragansett, Rhode Island. So, a lot of interesting points that were brought out. Mr. DeLuca says they're going to be making some kind of amendment changes. I guess those will be forthcoming. So, we don't know what those are. We don't know if they might be able to tweak their plans to work with that. So, we might not want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I do appreciate that we do have to be consistent. We don't want to open up ourselves to suits saying, you made exceptions to them, how can we make exceptions to us? But if we are going to make modifications, as Councilwoman Susan Bonanno brought out, that sometimes when you bring an ordinance on, it does have to be tweaked. If you now they said that they're going to go from 1,000 to 2,500. Well, who knows? Maybe based on the amendment, maybe they might be able to go from 1,000 to maybe 1,600, like the gentleman just brought out. He said 1,600 might work based on his metrics, but so there might be some kind of accommodation. I just feel that the whole purpose of the bulk zoning, and I think it's valid. We all can look at next to Twin Willows. You have that monstrosity of a house. It looks like it's a skyscraper. It doesn't look nice. It's not appealing to me. I'm sure it's probably going to have a good view, but I mean, it's just too big for that lot. So I can only totally reflect and respect the bulk zoning ordinance, and we do have to be consistent. But if they, if we also don't want to go from maybe one extreme to the other. It was designed for a purpose. So we don't have those monstrosity houses on these small lots, but they might be able to make some kind of adjustment and tweaks based on the changes that might be forthcoming. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, and, yep, Mr. Lupino. We'll have James swear you in.
Please, I'm sorry, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Tony Lupino, Lake Road, Narragansett. I listened to an hour of testimony, and I didn't plan on speaking tonight, but I was concerned that an ordinance was passed and someone was circumventing some of the procedures to go directly to the council. I'm not the one who likes to threaten, but I can tell you if this is approved, I can tell you that I can bring in 40 or 50 people from just the Bonnet Shores neighborhood that would like to come before the council and circumvent the other situation. I heard testimony from an attorney that said she wasn't aware, but you only are interested after you have an interest. That's what I would say to the attorney. To the gentleman who's applying, I wish you would have as much compassion to me on how much I've lost in my 401k in the last 6 months as you've lost in the last 16 or 17 years since you bought the property, since it seems to be the purchase price and the value, according to the records, is the same. If someone's paying $84,000 a year, a lot of that is juice, you would be more aware of what's going on in the local community, since you said you had a connection to the local community. So this just seems to be like an economics situation. I think most fearful is that you go back on an ordinance or change something, you're going to open up the floodgates. I think you should deny this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Wait, are you guys having trouble with the, does it need to be louder? Muffled? Okay. I don't know if are there any knobs you could turn over there? Maybe we'll try and make it a little bit louder. All right, thank you. All right, anybody else from the public? Nope, okay. All right, Ms. Hogan, if you'd like to come back up.
Thank you. I just have a brief response, if I could, to the chair's comments or the president's comments. This is not an appeal. We're not seeking individual variances. And we're here to attempt to change the law. And that's the appropriate venue for us to do that. Whether people agree that we should be requesting that or not is another story, but this is the process. I will also note again that during the deliberations that the council had last year, you specifically indicated on a number of occasions that you would be willing to revisit and tweak. We have asked for that as one of our alternatives. I've heard Mr. DeLuca's testimony this evening. We are hopeful that the amended changes, proposed changes, are things that would be equitable, that would not take away square footage from people when they go to rebuild, that it would not take away their parking when they go to rebuild, and it should allow for a reasonable use of their property so that they're not indentured servants, if you will, to a home that is far past its prime and could, in fact, be a danger to its occupants, not just this particular applicant, but other homeowners. And I would especially like to see the planning department examine specifically and in real-world application the implementation of this ordinance on the smaller lots, such as this one, because the presentations that were made to this council were on 20,000 square foot lots, and the pictures were very pretty and very reasonable. But when you're dealing with a small lot that's pre-existing, there are unintended consequences. And we've identified those for you tonight, not for the purpose of asking for you to give us a variance. We know that we're not here for that. Not for us to be appealing, but to highlight to this council the unintended consequences, I believe, that have been engendered by this particular ordinance. I can't for a moment believe that any member of this council would want to take away someone's property rights and diminish what they have just because they want to improve their property. So I just can't believe that of any of you. So for those reasons, I'm again asking you to consider our request to the extension of the effective date, alternatively, an extension to the effective date for those properties that have 4 bedrooms or less, and thirdly, in the process, perhaps you don't need to identify or direct the planning board to do what it apparently is already doing. Excuse me. Thank you very much for your attention.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hogan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I just want to make sure I'm totally clear, just for the record. I don't want to make any misstatements. So it wasn't my intention to say that you're actually going for a variance tonight. I was more using an analogy, but just to be totally clear, they're looking for a change to the effective date of the bulk zoning amendments. So just want to make that clear. Any other thoughts from the council?
Yeah, I got a couple
Okay.
things to say.
Councilor Murray?
Okay. We started this bulk zoning business. It was legal to put a 6-bedroom, 3-bath house, 3 stories on a, subprime, subzone lot. And the pendulum was swinging one way. Now it's swinging the other way, restricting rights, property rights. And I agree with Margaret and the applicant that it's taken away rights from people. And And I know the fear is that it's going to turn into another college rental. So let's talk about other ramifications. The 3-student. All that did was move the investors from 4, 5, 6-bedroom homes down to 2 to 3-bedroom homes. They're taking 2 bedrooms, turning it into a 3-bedroom home, and renting them out, Airbnb-ing them. So there's ramifications all over the place with town policy on housing, okay? I mean, the big push was affordable housing. Now we just knocked out a bunch of families who were buying these 2 and 3-bedroom homes because investors are stepping in and paying cash, okay? I think 2 or 3 bedrooms turned into student rentals is up 67%. Or 70%.
You don't have
67%.
that information. You have information on new 2-bedroom student rentals, and it's up
Yes.
67%.
Check the records there. I've already looked at it, so it's, well, all right, I know that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about ramifications of ordinances, and that's what's going on here, you know? I mean,
But, okay, so if that's what you're talking about, let's go back to the issue of property rights, because everybody has property rights, not just somebody who's doing something different to their property. The people who are around them do have property rights too. And that was one of the issues that we were addressing with bulk zoning. So I think it's important to remember that as well.
I agree, and I understand, but now the pendulum is swung the other way, okay? So there's got to be middle ground here, okay? That's all I'm asking. And I can't support this 60-day window. I can't support it because I want to give Mr. DeLuca, I'm going to give him, a chance to redeem, and adjust this so it's more of a friendly ordinance that would assist families. And then I believe that they didn't know of the ordinance change. We had COVID, we had Zoom meetings, we changed the building inspector during that same period. So, there was a lot of things going on in that period. So, I mean, I think we're going to take a hard look at this, make some changes, because I've had complaints from people.
Me as well.
And I know everything costs so much money, and it's so disheartening that you have a plan, you can't do it. And I hope we can get this resolved for everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Everyone good on the council? Okay, so do we have a motion to receive and place on file the recommendation from the planning board?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 5-0. And do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 5-0. And then do we have a motion to introduce, read, pass, and accept as a first reading an amendment of Chapter 1087, zoning ordinance, and amendment of Chapter 731 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett, Rhode Island, entitled Zoning, specifically text revisions to Section 2.2, definitions, Section 6.4, dimensional regulations, Section 7.6, supplementary lot and bulk regulations, Section 7.9, automobile parking space, Section 7.10, plans and specifications for parking requirements, plus the addition of a new section, 12.23, development standards for homes exceeding 4 bedrooms, to amend the effective date to 60 days after the adoption of the ordinance.
Make the motion.
Is there a second? So I just want to be clear, we need to make a decision at some point.
Second.
Okay. We don't have to,
Right.
we just have to take a vote.
Yes or no? Yes or no?
Okay, so motion by Susan, seconded by Deb. Any discussion? Actually, yeah, any discussion on this specifically? Okay. All in favor? All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion fails 0-5. Okay, and then, right, okay. All right, thank you. Thank you. All right. Next, we have a motion to schedule a public hearing on a petition from Brian Couture, is that pronounced right? And Melissa Durkin-Couture for the abandonment of a portion of Kathy Drive.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Patrick. So the suggested date for this is Tuesday, October 3rd. So it must be a holiday on Monday, so that would be first meeting in October at 8 p.m. Any questions or comments from the council? Anyone from the public on the scheduling? So this is specifically on the scheduling. Oh, okay, nobody? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved, 5-0. And do we have a motion to refer the request to the planning board for review?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? Okay, all right. Catherine? Please state your full name and address.
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. I just have a general concern about all of this, and I've expressed it in the past. Now, we know that we have a problem with, because with the state, there's a state law that states that certain cities and towns cannot just abandon land and give it away. Now, this has been a problem that's been brought to our attention a year ago, and Mr. Marcella had the opportunity to contact one of our state reps and ask that maybe Narragansett be added to the law so that we can get some money from people when we give them town-owned land. Now, I'm thinking, affordable housing. The money we get, we could put into a fund for that, and it could be used for that purpose. And I just really would like to know why Mr. Marcella hasn't taken the initiative to contact one of our reps. And I'll say this at the planning board, too, and I mean, there should be an answer here. Thanks.
All right. Well, I think the other thing is, and Steve, you can answer if you want, it doesn't matter.
Well,
Well, the other thing is, it doesn't even make sense to do that at this point because we can't sell it anyway, right? So.
Agree.
Okay. But once, at some point, hopefully that will get on the ballot so that we can sell town property and then we can pursue that additional legislation. Anyone else from the public? Okay. All right. So this is to refer to planning board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved, 5-0. Next, we have a motion to schedule a public hearing on the application of Narragansett Casino LLC, doing business as Narragansett Casino, for a new Class B victualler limited alcoholic beverage license at Assessor's Plat C, Lot 181-1AS, 11 Pier Marketplace, Narragansett, Rhode Island. Is there a
I'll move that motion.
All right.
Second.
Okay, so this would be, sorry, let me enlarge this. This would be scheduled for September 6th, 2022, which I believe is the earliest we could do based on it having to go to planning. Any discussion from the council?
What's
Okay.
the date? I'm sorry.
September 6th. Okay, anyone from the public? Okay, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, motion approved, 5-0. Okay, so that is it for our public hearings and scheduling of public hearings. We were on
12.
number 13 from engineering. So back to the waiver request for the sewers. We'll go to the public. Anyone from the public interested in speaking? Sorry for the wait. Ms. Celebrato?
President,
Yep.
did the
Did I miss?
hearing on the site plan drop off?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Did the hearing on the site plan for Narragansett Casino drop off the agenda? Because that was before the liquor
Oh.
license.
It did. No, it didn't drop off, but I missed it. So
Thank
let
you.
me go back. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
So we skipped
Motion to refer to the planning board.
the motion to refer it to the
I'll
planning.
make-
Actually, no, it's here.
It's
I'm
here.
just trying to think. Oh, it's two items. There's one for the use and then one for the liquor license.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, I knew that. I just totally missed that. So thank you. We're going to go back to that section. Sorry, Catherine. We have a motion to schedule a public hearing acting as the Urban Renewal Board of Review on a request from Narragansett Casino LLC, doing business as Narragansett Casino, to amend the previously approved site use/plan at 11 Pier Marketplace as follows. Number 1, to keep one theater of the existing theater. Number 2, to convert the second theater room into an event banquet room to be used for multifunction events and serve alcohol. To convert the third theater room into an arcade game space. To add in the lobby a bar with wine and beer service and high-top seating for board games and watching TV. And number 5, second floor will remain as an event banquet space with the anticipated future use of converting it to a sports bar. Do we have a motion?
I'll move the motion.
Okay, so this one would be, I think, same date, so September 6th. So we would take care of both at the same time. Any comments from the council? Questions? Okay, anyone from the public? Yep, come on up. All right, Richard, how you doing?
Very good, how are you?
Good. Could you state your full name and address?
My name is Richard Bloom. My address is 27 Metatuxet Road, Narragansett.
Okay, go ahead.
On the motion to schedule this public hearing, you have written down that we're converting a second theater into a banquet room. This was converted somewhere between 2006 and 2012. So it is not a theater now.
Right, yep.
It is a banquet room that we're keeping basically the same.
Okay,
And then the other room used to be Shore Break, a comedy show place. And we're basically going to be changing that into an arcade where we're going to have games for the public.
okay,
The goal is to make this whole place better for Narragansett Pier.
okay. So it's that, there's a few lines in here that are not accurate, because there's really just the one theater.
Correct. And
Right.
we're keeping that one theater the same way it is. So basically, the intended use of that building is to keep it the same as it was. It had a liquor license. All we're looking for is a beer and wine license, and trying to create the proper occupancy for the entire building.
Okay. James, would it make sense for us to amend the motion to reflect that, or is the public statements enough of a correction?
It'll go to the planning board for review, so I think everything could be cleared up there. I'll come back to you for the actual motion and the approval, so I think that could be squared away at that point with more details.
Okay, all right. Okay, thanks for clearing that up. And so the public's aware, the banquet hall will remain a banquet hall to be used for multifunction events, serve alcohol. The theater will stay a theater, and the open space that was Shore Break will be an arcade game space.
Correct.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you. Everyone clear? Okay.
Thank you.
Council President, the last plan does not have a theater in it at all. It has an event room with theater seating. That's what was approved, so
Like-
it's not an actual theater use.
The previous
Currently.
use.
The previous use.
Okay, an event hall with theater seating.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay, but it's been used as a theater. The seats are still the same since 1976. So that has not changed.
so, okay, and this will be a longer discussion at the planning board. So they can work through that with you. So we just want to make sure to get it scheduled. So thank you, Richard. Anyone else from the public? Catherine?
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Eagles Court. I want to question. I thought they were asking you, the town council, to sit as, to hear this, because you have the authority to do it under the Urban Renewal Act. The
So
town
our
council.
understanding is that it does still need to go to planning.
But it still has to go to planning.
Right,
And would it go to zoning too?
no,
No, just to planning.
yes.
In the urban renewal zone, you are the zoning board, so it comes back here no matter what.
Anyway, okay. The other thing is this, When do we get out of this urban renewal thing? This has been going on for 50 years. The Pier Marketplace has been, under this, I don't know, guideline or whatever. And aren't the businesses in the Pier Marketplace paying a lower tax rate than the commercial rate because they're in an urban renewal zone?
I don't know that, but this is just for
So-
scheduling this one, so.
I know, but I'm hoping that in the future you will look to get us out of this thing. The place has been renewed. I can't imagine what else could be done there, but okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, so September 6th, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved 5-0, then a motion to refer the request to the planning board for review. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved 5-0. Okay, great. So we will get back to number 13, which was the sewer waiver request. We went through some discussion with the council. Is there anyone from the public that's interested in speaking? Yep, Catherine?
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. This house is in the Earls Court Historic District. It's a voluntary oversight because of politics, but it is a historic house. And these owners haven't even gone before the Historic District Commission, and usually they'll do that even in a voluntary district just as a courtesy. Also, they already have 2 sewer hookups, and they're not supposed to have 2 sewer hookups on one lot. They already have. I don't know when they got it. What can you do? And they haven't subdivided this property yet. They want you to give them a sewer permit before they get the subdivision okay, and that seems backwards to me. Do they want to, maybe they want to put something in their deed where they're never going to rent this property out. People come up here and they're always saying, it's for my family. I want, people to come and visit me and all of that. But then they end up being rentals, and it happens all the time. So if they want a family compound, that would be great. But if it's just going to be another rental property, it's not contributing to anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Alba? I know, sorry. Please state your full name and address.
Yes, Dr. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace, Narragansett, Rhode Island. I think Catherine's got a valid point. We have to be careful in regards to, this family here, we saw, we have rules in place in regards to what's going to be built, what's not going to be built. So they have a lot, and they're planning on dividing this up. Is that what they're doing to build? So in regards to bulk zoning ordinance too, the lot's designed for such and such houses and so many square feet. This should maybe all be considered, looking at the potential size of the house and everything else to see if they're going to be even violating the bulk zoning ordinance. It's like putting the cart before the horse. Why are we talking about giving them a permit for sewage if they won't even be able to put appropriate size houses based on the lot size and everything else? So I would just sit back and see what the plans are and see if they can actually fit appropriate size houses on that lot. So just a consideration. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Yep. Hi, please state your full name and address.
Hi, Josh Bouvier, Columbia Street, Wakefield, Rhode Island. My name's Josh Bouvier. My father and I are the applicants on the 41 Gibson Avenue, and I thought I'd just give a little background on the project. So as has been stated, it's a single lot. It has 2 residents on it, each with sewer hookups. Our intent is to do a 3-lot subdivision. My intent is to take the middle lot and build a lot for myself with my wife and 2 kids. We own South County Post and Beam, so building a timber frame house, that's kind of what I have to do. So that my wife and I identified that neighborhood a number of years ago as the place we want to move with our children and raise our family for all the obvious reasons to you folks. And the original house, as anybody who's driven by, is currently under extensive renovation. It's from 1890. It's one of the original houses in the Sherry Cottage group. And, you know, we take that very seriously, and we're doing a really top-to-bottom authentic restoration of that property. There's plenty of other things we could do with that house that would be less expensive and produce a better return, but that's going to be my neighbor when we move there. And at the end of our project there, that house is going to be head and shoulders of where it has been for the last 40 years.
Okay, I have a few questions, anyone? How large is the full property, size-wise, acreage?
It's about 1.15 acres.
Okay, and there's the one house that you're renovating and will sell, and then there's another house on that property right now?
Yes, there's two houses. There's the original house from 1890 on Gibson Avenue. There's a carriage house that's his own address on Westmoreland Street. And then there's a lot in the middle, which is what we're proposing for the new lot. So all the new lots don't require any zoning variances. They all meet all of current zoning restrictions. And they'll obviously, any lot that's less than 20,000 feet will be subject to the FAR rules.
Yep.
And our design will represent that.
But you haven't had the subdivision approved yet? Or
We
you
have not, because the planning board needs to get a sewer approval. They can't give us a subdivision approval if we don't have a sewer approval.
And you haven't gone in front of them at all, right?
We have gone in front of them, and they said, you've got to come get a sewer approval. That brought us to the sewer board. Sewer board had a split decision. We went back to water table testing. We can't get a sewer approved. Now we've come back to you with a hardship.
So that was, a septic was that officially rejected? You have like paperwork that says it was rejected by the state?
Well, I have my engineer here, could maybe speak
Okay.
more accurately to that.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is David Russo. I'm a professional engineer with DePreet Engineering. So the water tables that were submitted were completed by a professional soil evaluator, and there was a DEM inspector on site for those soil evaluations, and the water table was determined at basically 0 inches. So there's no water table, so they wouldn't approve a septic with that water table without significant variances through DEM, but DEM may not even give you those because there's a sewer directly in front of the house. So there's not, they would look at that.
Right. Those soil tests, though, are the results of that included? I didn't see that.
They were submitted to the town engineer under the assumption they were going to be part of whatever got forwarded to you.
Okay, maybe it isn't here.
But those
Okay.
were done with DEM.
Okay, great. Okay, any questions?
Yeah, I got a quick question. That sewer line runs right by all three houses, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So all you gotta do is just go in there, put a hub.
Yeah, everything else on the property
Yeah.
is
It's already hooked up.
exactly the way the town regulations lead. The sewer line's right there. We just have to tie into it.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? No, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else from the public? Okay, I just want to say like one more quick thing, because we just had that, we just had the bulk zoning applicant, and we're talking about large houses and density and all that. And sometimes we have these discussions, and it kind of feels like, even when you're saying, it feels like you could contradict yourself, because it is complicated, what we're trying to do. But we do want more housing, and the town will have to be, I think, we'll have to increase density in some spots. And this isn't especially dense. Like this would be divided into 2 lots, but they're all within the proper size. They're not asking for like a special use or a variance or something, to go into a small lot. These lots are going to be, whatever the word is, compliant. And that's something that I think has to happen if you're going to increase the amount of housing in town. So that's my last thing. Anyone?
Yeah, I just want to, I understand what you're saying, but I do have this concern about, approaching maximum level for sewage, and it's an important thing in a town like Narragansett, with, considering where it is, considering how little land there is left to build on, and the fact that we are nowhere near the level of affordable housing that we should be at. So I agree with you that density is going to become important, but it's not going to be at that spot. So, so for me, the problem is that we have to consider density, we also have to consider, capacity, and we also have to consider affordability. And those 3 things sort of don't meet in this property. That's the problem that I have.
Okay, all right, anything else? So we will go ahead and take the vote. So the motion is to provide a decision. So then I guess we should make a motion, one way or
I'll
another.
move that motion. In favor.
So it's a motion to approve the waiver.
Correct.
You'll second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
Okay, motion approved, 3-2. Number 14 is a motion to authorize the town manager to sign a successor agreement with the University of Rhode Island relative to the lease of flow space at the regional wastewater treatment facilities, and authorize the town manager and town engineer to continue negotiations relative to the acquisition of additional flow space.
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Discussion? Any questions? Okay, this is something that we had discussed a while back. Anyone from the public? Catherine? Please state your full name and address.
Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. This is starting to cost a lot of money. 70 grand, another 70 grand for another 200,000 gallons, and then they obviously want more than 70 grand. They're going to be squeezing us for a lot of money. And this is every year, every year, every year. And when does this end, And how much capacity is there really left in this plant? I mean, because do we have 1 million gallons left? Do we have, no one...
It's approximately, the whole plant as a whole is between 60 and 70% capacity, correct, John? Is that about right?
How many more gallons can we buy?
Oh.
That's a simple question. How many
Well,
more gallons? And why are we doing this? To increase the number of houses? Is that what we're doing? Or so that
No,
we don't get an email, don't flush today? Is that
Septics are
it?
failing.
Well, let's just remember, this is a renewal of an existing agreement.
I know for this one, but they're talking about trying to buy more, and it's going to be even more expensive. So we're just talking about the renewal today. But does anybody have the answer to that question? How many gallons are left? Nope. I guess
I
not.
got 60, 70%.
Thank you. Anyone else? Stanley? Stanley, please state your full name and address.
Stanley Rosie, 1044 Boston Neck Road. I was just curious, should we be putting a notice out there that there is no future building can happen to tie into sewer lines? Is that how close we are? So now that we're not going to approve anyone to build any house that needs a sewer, so we can provide a sewer for all the existing people. Is that the plan? Is that what we're going to? Just want to know. We're on the edge here, and I guess I heard Eva say that, these existing people are going to need sewers. So is it time for us to tell all developers, you cannot build a house here if you want to get on sewers? Is that happening or planned? Nobody knows.
Well, it's, one thing, we're not supposed to have a dialogue back and forth.
Because I don't know who to allow to have sewers and not to have sewers. I know I need some existing sewers, so I'm on that side of the phase where I'll be I have some septics that have to go to sewers sooner or later. So I know I'm on that end of the program, but with all this discussion about sewer capacity, I just didn't know if it's just logical to tell all the builders, don't think you can build a house here. And that's all we have, I think, is all swampy land available, so you need sewers. So we're going to just stop them all. And if that's the case, then nobody gets special favors now, right? Everybody just stops giving all the builders sewers, because we don't have the capacity, until we get a lot more from URI, I guess. But then I'm hoping to get a calculation that after we get all this URI sewage, that's going to be able to fix all our existing plant, because septics are going to fail, within 25, 50 years, they're all going to fail. So we have to have sewer availability. So I just didn't know whether that's the plan, that's all, or that should be the plan, or should be out there. Just curious. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. Just a reminder to the public, typically with public comment, it's just more of a one-way conversation. We're happy to answer questions through email or after the meeting, or you can get in touch with staff as well. Any other comments? Okay,
I got one.
go ahead, Patrick.
All right. In the southern part of town, we have enough sewers between, I don't know, anywhere from 500 to 700 homes. It's the pier in the north end where sewers are tight. That plant is owned by 3 towns. Our 1/3 is that we can use up to 85% capacity. That's something that we can adjust if we want to, because the plant as a whole is only between 60 and 70% at capacity. So the needle hasn't moved much for URI and South Kingston, the other 2 occupants of the sewer plant, because they don't have the infrastructure for sewer use. So that's the short version.
All right, thank you, Patrick. Okay, so we have the motion to authorize town manager. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved, 5-0. Number 15 is a motion to approve a 1-year agreement with St. Elizabeth Adult Daycare Center, 283 Post Road, South Kingstown, Rhode Island, 02879, to provide adult daycare services to residents of the town of Narragansett, and authorize the town manager to sign the agreement and provide funding in the amount of $26,530. Do we have a motion?
I'll move the motion.
Second.
All right. So this is money that we used to allocate towards the town of South Kingstown. However, now that service is being done through a third party at St. Elizabeth Adult Daycare. So it's the same expense, it's just going to a different company. Any questions or comments?
Nope.
Anyone from the public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved,
A
5-0.
couple years.
Number 16 is a motion to approve the Boston chapter of BMW CCA Rhode Island Group's request for a show and shine car show at Veterans Memorial Park on Sunday, August 7th, subject to state and local laws. Do we have a motion?
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Any comments? Anyone from the public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 5-0. Number 17 is a motion to award the bid for the Clark Road Basketball Court Rehabilitation Project to the sole bidder, Joyce Construction Incorporated, in the amount of $31,376. Is there a motion?
I'll move the motion.
Second.
All right, any questions or comments?
I just had a question for Michelle about Clark Road basketball usage down there. I know there's been a lot of conversation about pickleball. I just want to clear up. So just the usage down there for basketball at Clark Road, just curious, I mean, is it highly used? I know you're spending $31,000, I just wanted to.
So it is increasing now that the warmer weather has set in. There's been actually a number of basketball games, pickup basketball games by the younger groups of kids coming in. Also, we had an older group the other day playing as well. So I also think it's very important not only for the community to come and be able to have basketball in the southern end of town, but also our camp. The kids at camp often play pickup games throughout the day and have little tournaments. So again, I do think it's an integral part of our parks system, and I think the maintenance is well overdue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Michelle?
How's that
Okay.
ice skating rink doing?
No.
All right, we'll stay on topic with the basketball courts.
Well,
Thank
she
you.
asked about pickleball.
That was
I
a
did.
side.
I
No.
asked about basketball.
You mentioned pickleball. All right, never mind.
Okay, thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle.
All right, anyone else from the public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 5-0. Number 18 is a motion to approve, ratify, and confirm change order number one for the purchase and installation of an additional 170 linear feet of 8-foot black vinyl chain link fence for Sprague Park from Costco, Inc., in the amount of $14,110, utilizing the State of Rhode Island's master price agreement.
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Okay, any questions or discussion?
This is already done, right?
It's already done.
Just wanted to be sure.
Okay, anyone from the public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 5-0. Number 19 is a motion to approve the request from Mike, oh, where you going? You leaving the meeting? I know, I'm kidding. All right, so Counselor Bonanno is going to recuse from this item. A motion to approve the request from Michael Cummings, DBA Dells Mon LLC, to transfer the beach portable soft frozen beverage concession contract at Narragansett Town Beach to Emily Bonanno with no change in contract terms, subject to state and local regulations. Is there a motion?
I'll move that motion.
I'll
There's-
second.
Okay, motion by Patrick, second by Eva. Any discussion from the council? Does the applicant, you know, if you want to, you can come on up.
Graft.
What a sweet development. Very good. If you could state your full name and address.
Emily Bonanno, 9 Secluded Drive. As I'm sure that you've put together by now, I am the Emily that purchased the Dells Lemonade in Wakefield, the same Dells that hold the contract to sell lemonade at the Narragansett Town Beach. It was brought to my attention that the transfer of ownership was on this evening's agenda, so I figured I would share a bit of my time at Dells before you ultimately decide my fate. I started working for Mike Cummings, the previous owner of Dells, when I was 14 years old. This means this would be my 12th season working with Dells. Mike worked closely with the town to ensure beach patrons were provided a Dells lemonade while enjoying their time on the town beach. My first few seasons at Dells, I worked inside the concession stand at the North Pavilion, and then soon after we began using push carts that were placed in 3 separate locations across the beach. After my time at the beach, I began to work at the main location in Wakefield, and years later began to manage the store. During my time at Dells, I fell in love with the business Mike had created. It quickly became evident that 12 years there wasn't enough for me. I wasn't ever leaving. Mike and I discussed the idea of me buying Dells when he was ready for retirement. I feel exceptionally grateful to have been given this opportunity, and I hope to continue the partnership with the town that Mike has created. Mike has brought me up to speed with the due dates for payments to the town and with the expectations that we must maintain to continue to serve our community at the town beach this summer. It is my intention to continue this partnership in the positive manner that Mike and the town created many years ago, and I hope you will allow me the opportunity to do so. Thanks so much for your time.
All right, thank you. Any comments from the council? Okay. Anyone from the public?
No
Could have
spoon.
fun.
No
Look
spoon,
at
no
this
straws.
proud mother in the front row here.
I could have fun with this, but I'm going to leave it alone.
Just as
What kind of
probably
corruption
oldest
we
Rhode
got?
Islander drinking Del.
Oh, you want to
Dells.
talk about the straws?
The straws and the spoons. Like, Emily, please, no straws, no spoons. Just make them squeeze the cups.
I
okay?
have plenty of straws if you need them. I'll bring them some.
Sorry,
shopping
Eva
bags,
banned the
too.
straws already, so no
I'll bring
straws.
straws and shopping bags, all you need. You know, you got a whole tractor trailer full.
Okay, anyone from the
Figures.
public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congrats.
Congratulations, motion approved, 4-0. All right,
All right, Susan, get back up here. I'm going to go home tonight.
all right, number 20, from the town manager is a motion to consider and approve the selection of projects as presented during the fiscal year 2021-2022 American Rescue Plan work session and budget work sessions to be funded with American Rescue Plan Act funds. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, so this is basically a list of projects that the town is looking for a decision on in terms of moving forward and using some of this ARPA money. I'm going to have the town manager go ahead and start us off.
Thank you, Jesse. As some people know, the council knows that we were awarded nearly $4.6 million through the American Rescue Plan Act. When the funds initially came out, there was a restriction that you had to encumber them to a project by the end of 2024 and spend the money by the end of 2026. Initially, the guidelines for using the funds was more strict at the beginning, that was related to COVID with life, safety, health. Then it opened up to be used for some more projects. We met, the town staff had met several times to discuss different projects that department heads are interested in seeing funded. Additionally, it had been discussed at the council meetings. We did a survey online, which citizens had some input, which we incorporated into it. And again, it's before the council this evening in the public forum to invite the public to comment. The recommended projects for this funding, the staff and myself are forwarding to the council for consideration. They are not in exactly the priority order completely, but the water system upgrades, the wastewater groin project, which is the wall that protects the sewage treatment plant and the upgrade of that, these projects are absolutely necessary. They are not in our regular budget right now. These projects have to be done. The water system upgrades, for sure. The wastewater project, for sure. Any type of compromise during a storm or a surge could have catastrophic effects down there. So those two projects for sure are what we are recommending this evening that the council consider for the appropriation of the funds for those. Additionally, the fire station renovations on stations 2 and 3, the chief has demonstrated that the current station status is really, it's inadequate. We have 8 new firefighters. The stations were not meant to handle that many people. Additionally, we have 3 female firefighters now, and all indications is that could be increasing over time. And the chief can speak more with more details on the renovations, but the council's been provided with them to review. The town hall HVAC, I would put that to the bottom of these 4, but we still recommend it. We saw during COVID with the poor ventilation in the building, like many places, COVID kind of went through the building pretty quickly with the staff. And this room would also be affected by it if we did that. It would create a more sanitary, climate-controlled, and good exchange of air in the building, which also fits into the original restrictions on how some of the money could be spent, because it's connected to that, to health and safety. But at this juncture, these are the projects that I recommend to the council for approval to assign the ARPA money to.
All right, thank you, Jim. Why don't we go around the council, get some thoughts? You guys cold?
Yeah.
Okay, so Susan, you can start.
So I definitely in agreement with the water. I'm not sure about the firehouse, but I also just wanted to bring to the council's attention, you have a letter in front of you. Again, another plea from the Affordable Housing Collaborative to put $25,000 in APRA funds to a study for housing stock in Narragansett to begin working on affordable housing. As you know, we need something to get started on that. So you received a letter months ago, and tonight I have it for you again. That's for $25,000. But I agree with the water quality study, and town hall, I think is fine. I'm a little concerned about the fire station one for $650. I'm not sure that I'm in full support of that. I don't know what the rest of everybody's thinking.
Yes. So I actually support the town manager's recommendations, even with I talked to Chief about the fire station renovations way back. So I think we always hear about sewer and water. That's a big deal. I think the town hall one is an important one. So I would actually support these recommendations tonight.
All right, Deb?
I just have this question. I know that there is a significant amount of infrastructure money that's been provided to the state of Rhode Island, and I know that the way that municipalities are getting their funds is through grant awards, and I'm not exactly sure where we're at with that subject. I haven't seen anything in a while, but I also know that a lot of that funding would go towards water and sewage issues. So I'm absolutely in favor of spending a lot of money in both of those places, but I just wonder if we know anything more about what we would have to do to get some of that funding and maybe use some of this for something else.
We do continue to research that, and John and I have looked over a few of grants that become available to see if they're applicable to this, and we continue to do that. But at this juncture, we haven't found any additional ones right now that fit this. But we continue to look. And the council always has the ability to change course at any point once the projects are approved.
Right, so
it-
tonight, we would still have these would still have to go out to RFPs, come back with quotes, and we'd still have to approve those
See where we go with
expenses.
that, okay. Because maybe by then there will be some, some funding opportunities and we can just shift the money around. I mean, that's all I was thinking about. Obviously, they're very, very important. And, I think I'm okay with all the rest of them at this point, but I guess we'll see what happens over time.
Okay, thank you, Deb. Patrick?
Okay, I can support the groin and the, how often do you get to say groin? You know?
Well, not in this company.
And, upgrade that, protect that plant down there and the water system upgrades. I'm sorry to see the OPEB, paying down our OPEB. I think it's very important, especially with inflation. Going to continue to rise. It will ease future costs dramatically if we pay down that note, that continual other post-benefits, employee benefits. So I was a little disappointed that wasn't on there, but I can approve tonight the water and sewer.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think, like we've all said, these are projects that really do need to happen. We've all heard about the water issues throughout all of our terms, probably, Susan, the entire time you've been on the council. So that's something that has to be fixed. For the fire station, so one of those, the one in the south end, was one that we had, actually, I don't remember I could be, tell me if I'm wrong, but I felt like the council basically said, we will use the ARPA money to do that project, which is why we didn't put it in the budget. So I feel like, maybe not Patrick, but at least for me, I basically committed to using the ARPA money for that. And you guys can answer that for yourselves. The addition is number 3, which increased the cost.
So 2, yes, but 3 was.
Right, so we'd have to discuss, I
Yeah,
guess, if we want to
so
add to that.
we could talk about
The other thing I wanted to just mention was for the town hall HVAC. I think that's a project that should be done, and I bet everyone sitting over there agrees with that. I do think that if we say tonight that we want to go forward with that, I think it's essential to get a second quote on that, because, at least a second, because I know the original was like half the price, and I know everything's gone up, but that is extreme in terms of increase. So I'd like to see a second quote on that.
Jesse, could we have the chief come up and just explain the two, what the renovations are for both
Yeah,
stations?
Chief, do you mind talking about, actually, maybe both stations? Just the
Yeah,
kind of,
especially
I
3,
agree
but
with
you
you
could
about 2,
do-
but we can still make sure we understand. I pass 2 every day, so I know it needs one. They don't even have parking.
Certainly. Good evening.
good evening.
So, Jesse, you were correct, by the way, in stating what you had told me during the budget workshop sessions. Yes, you did indicate that if this was going to be cut from the normal capital improvement project funding, we would seek the opera funds in order to fund this project. So,
But
thank
Chief,
you.
with 2 and 3, or just 2? Because I think that's the difference, right?
It was primarily for station renovations. And then in formulating this assessment here, we realized that we are very short on space, not just personnel space, but also storage space for apparatus. That's why we're storing apparatus at this point outside, where we have to store some vehicles and things, because we just don't have the room. In fact, we have a spare rescue behind Station 2 right now that is just hanging out by there. Number one, we can't sell it. And number two, we have no place in which to be able to store it, to hold on to it. So I just want to run you down quickly for this project. So this project was primarily for the Station 2 renovation project. As Jim pointed out, we have added additional personnel, 8 personnel to the fire department, 3 of which now we have three female firefighters. This project was sought really several years back. 2 or 3 years back, I was looking for funding for this project to renovate this station. This is one of the 3 stations that has yet to experience any significant renovations at all. We did some exterior upgrades, painting primarily in the past, but we have not expanded the station at all. We have apparatus that barely fit in the building. We have no accommodations for any other storage space around there, locker space. We have 1 bathroom. It's not gender-friendly, let's put it that way, to support an additional bathroom. We lack bunk space as well. We have facilities to accommodate basically 2 firefighters at this place. So we're looking to expand this, and we had sought to expand this several years back, and it had just kept getting cut and cut and cut on it, and so we were hoping to support this project. The current station is about 2,700 square feet. 2,000 of it supports just storage space. The other 700 square feet supports living accommodations at that station. I did, during the budget workshop session, show you quite a few pictures, the time that I was allotted, that indicated just the tight space that's there. Right now, we have 4 personnel stationed there for accommodations for 2. We've taken the day room and we have converted it to basically another existing bunk room, if you will. There's no walls. We didn't have any funding at the time to be able to put up walls. We had consulted with ABCOR, the town engineering department, to come up with options for that, which included putting a trailer behind the station in order to accommodate additional firefighters. At a cost of over $33,000 in which to purchase a trailer or rent it for who knows how long. So we did look at that option. So right now we have these stanchions that are set up with basically sheets or curtains to separate, to provide for some privacy right now on a kind of an intermittent mobile basis. We're looking for a longer range plan in which to accommodate this. If it doesn't work out, I'll tell you, we may be facing having to separate those 2 firefighters and move them. And that would basically take a piece of apparatus, which is a staffed rescue, that will be staffed 24/7, at least 6 months out of the year, which is the agreement right now, right? And that's why they're staffed down there now, to taking those firefighters and separating to accommodate the living situations, which means moving 1 to headquarters, maybe another one to Station 3, or just leaving 1 additional down at Station 2 in order to make some more reasonable accommodations. That means taking a rescue out of service. So we no longer have that additional rescue in service. This is a huge, high priority project. I can't stress it enough. We need the funding for this going forward. We just have to complete this project. That was project number 1, which was at the time $550,000. I will say I've been working with engineering again to establish an RFP for architectural services and some wetland delineation services to determine just how far we can go out over there. If we can't go out, we'll go up. We'll make some kind of accommodations over there. That draft's complete. That's ready to go out. Again, that's going to require a little bit of funding in which to be able to do that, but we're prepared to put that out really now. We're just finalizing that RFP process now. The building at Station 3, which is what we're, the other part of this project, again, is storage space. It's to put up a steel storage building at this point to make room. I refer back to a lot of those pictures I showed you during those budget workshop sessions. There is no room. There is no room in which to put things right now. We have a Connex steel box behind Station 3 where we store things in. We have no available apparatus space. We beg, plead, borrow to put vehicles within DPW's facilities. That's more of a temporary basis, but we don't have the ability to do that. So this building would accommodate a lot of that reserve apparatus. It would accommodate some of our marine operations equipment, our jet skis, even possibly our boat to accommodate storage if it has to be taken out during the season. We have no other means in which to be able to put the apparatus. And then it would also provide some access to the community over there because it does border the Cristofaro Playground, so we could utilize that road leading into Cristofaro, create some access there, make it inviting to the community to come in and give some tours of the apparatus that would be there, which would include some of the department's antiques apparatus. We do have some additional private funding from the Firemen's Club that they would help us with that. There's an additional $50,000 that they are looking to want to kick into that project. But again, they want to know that it's going to be instituted and completed. So I could go on and on about the need for this funding, but I assure you it has great high importance for it. And I hope you would recognize that, all of you, and vote and approve it.
Thank you.
I can answer
Thank
any
you.
additional questions.
Good job, thank you.
I had a
That
question.
helps.
These 8 new firemen, fire persons, good God, they're temporary in nature, right?
Well, as you know, Patrick, we did secure them through the SAFER grant. It's a 3-year performance period. At some point, and we did discuss this before, the town would have to make a decision on what they were going to do going forward with these 8 additional firefighters, which put 2 additional firefighters on each of the 4 shifts. And that's what we have in place now. It staffs additional rescue, and I tell you, it's come quite handy already. We implemented that as of June 13th, and they are busy. We are busy. We had over 16 calls today, a number of which were down the south end, and not to mention some other water emergencies that have gone on, and it's been invaluable having them.
Well, since, these fire persons are temporary, is there any way you could just get temporary houses that, like you said, could you put a FEMA trailer at each station?
I keep hearing talk of a FEMA trailer. Basically, we did price trailers out. We priced them. You have to either purchase them or rent or lease them, and they are not cheap. They are expensive. The one we priced out, which would accommodate the 2 and provide a little bit additional living storage space for uniforms, lockers, things like that, was $33,000 purchased outright. There was a lease-to-rent option. I forget the pricing now, but it was on an annual basis. I have to guess somewhere $5,000, $6,000. I don't recall annually.
Right. I mean, this was a grant. Is there a FEMA grant out there for?
As you know, we're aggressive with looking to explore all funding options.
Right.
I was a little disappointed that the infrastructure package that came out of Washington, D.C. Didn't include infrastructure renovation and construction for fire, police, public safety buildings. Right. We were disappointed about that. We did express, the fire chiefs did lobby down there and express our disappointment. So that doesn't exist. We're hoping they pass something that will allow grant funding specifically for that purpose. Right. They have yet to do so. It would be a lot like the Assistant to Firefighter grant, the AFG grant, where there would be a match requirement as well.
As far as,
so that program doesn't exist yet.
right. As far as storage, I mean, you can buy a container right now. I mean, just temporarily.
Yeah, we have one. We have a container. We have one now behind Station 3 that has storage in it. I mean, conceivably, we could move that down there, store items in there.
We'll get another one.
It's tough to store people in there, though.
Oh, I know. Oh, I'm not saying stick the personnel into I'm talking about a bona fide, trailer. All right.
All right, good.
I'm good.
All right, thank
All
you,
right.
Chief.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, so we have the recommendations from the town manager, two water projects, one wastewater, one water system. We have the town hall HVAC and the 2 fire station renovations. We also have a request from Affordable Housing Collaborative Committee for a consultant. My question, I guess, there would be, I mean, we could find this out, but like, is that eligible? Because everything that's in here are physical, basically everything's physical projects. And this is a consultant, so I don't know that answer. I don't know if Janet knows it or if there's any concern that it wouldn't qualify.
Yeah, we'd have to look into that, but we can get an answer for you soon.
Yeah, there's a balance, so you could approve contingent upon, it meets the criteria.
Yeah.
I mean, I support that. The only thing I wonder, because these other ones have they've gotten quotes in the past, we're kind of basing things off that. I just wonder if if someone put on a motion next meeting to put out an RFP, so we know the actual, better.
Yeah, we should do that.
It's just I'm not sure where that number comes from. I don't know if there was discussion on exactly where the number
Yeah,
comes
so
from.
I can bring back a motion for that balance to say an RFP for a study done for affordable housing. I'll talk to my committee. It's fine.
And the amount isn't that much, first of all, and we would have time to get that done. So we'd have time, you would have time to put it on the next council agenda.
Okay.
And push it forward.
Let's do that.
Any other discussion or thoughts?
Nobody has any interest in paying down the OPEB, cost of employee benefits? No? Anyone?
Maybe someone from the public. Should we go to the public?
Sure.
All right, Stanley.
Stanley's on board.
Stanley, please state your full name and address, and if you could keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Stan Wachowski, 1044 Boston Nick Road. Yes, OPEB, there's a bill over there. Let's at least put some feelers out there. Let's try to get it. I like what I hear, but if we can get some funds, at least pursue it aggressively to get some funds from OPEB. That would
Approximately
be,
$2 million down on the OPEB today.
Yeah,
would save us $200,000 per year.
We've got to.
Perpetuity, correct?
Let's pursue that. At least make
$200,000 a year.
let's make a document somewhere and get out there and let's do it.
4 cents.
Get a document
almost 5
and
cents,
ask for it. Aggressively ask for it. Try. Thank you.
Beating the drum.
Thank you. Dr. Alba.
Dr. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace, Narragansett. Yeah, I support all of these requests. I do feel, I don't know if we have to use all this money, or if we have extra money left over, could we add something to this? So, for example, President Pugh, you did say, the cost for the HVAC almost doubled, so let's look at another bid. So I think getting more than one bid is a good thing. I know Stan's always saying, if you don't get one bid, if you only get one bid, then the person, you have a project done, and you find out you probably could have got it for a better price. So even though it's monies through this act, if we have monies which are saved over, maybe we can even add an additional project. So it's just a consideration. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, anyone else? Yep, Catherine. Please state your full name and address.
I'm Catherine Celebrato, 48 Earls Court. I agree that the OPEB should be paid down, but we just need such a big chunk of this money to do it. It's really not practical at this time. Maybe we could put out a bond and do it that way. Not now, not with the interest rates the way they are, but sometime in the future. As far as this $168,000 left, I'd like to see it go toward constructing an affordable unit in this town. We have 2 duplexes on Mansion. It's a huge lot. It could definitely accommodate 2 more duplexes. I know we can't build 4 units with $168,000, but we could certainly add on to one of those rather than a consultant. I think we know we have a problem in this town. I don't think we need anybody to tell us that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so what we would need here is, let me just look at the wording here. So we basically need to make a motion specifying which projects to go ahead and move forward with.
Let's try to get agreed on two, we'll figure something out later.
I thought we would agreed on all of them.
Well, what does everyone think? I mean, we can,
I was fine with all of them.
I was too, at this
I'm
point.
fine with sewer and water.
And then I'm going to do my 100.
all right, so why don't we make so Patrick just wants to do sewer and water. It sounds like there's a consensus to do all of them. So does someone want to make a motion for all of them?
Yes, I'll make a motion.
To approve.
Yeah, hold on.
The town
To approve the town
I'll
manager's
make it, yeah, to
recommendations.
the town manager.
And I'll second that.
All right, motion by Eva, seconded by Susan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
All right, motion approved, 4-1. Next, we have number 21 under Town Council, which is a motion to approve the ballot question. Shall new cannabis-related licenses for businesses involved in the cultivation, manufacture, laboratory testing, and for the retail sale of adult recreational use cannabis be issued in the town of Narragansett, be placed on the ballot for the November 8th, 2022 election, and authorize the Board of Canvassers to submit the question to the Secretary of State. Do we have a motion?
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Okay, so this is from Eva and Susan. Eva, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. So I've been following the legislation closely this year. It was just a matter of time, I thought, in Rhode Island that it was going to be, that cannabis was going to be legalized. So the issue with the legislation, the way it was written, it requires municipalities to opt out by ballot, not by council. So the council doesn't make that decision. It has to go to the residents, be a ballot question to opt out. So what the town council was responsible for basically is that we needed to ensure that the timeline was going to be met to get it on the ballot for a vote. Because if we didn't do that, then we would basically be opted in, and so we wouldn't really have that decision to make as a municipality. So again, doesn't matter what I think about this, being in town. I get a vote just like anyone else once it's on the ballot. So I'm going to have James, our solicitor, who I've been speaking with about this this issue, speak to it.
I think Eva encapsulated pretty well. It is different in that the legislature determined that the town councils would not make the decision as to whether retail licenses will be available in certain towns. Narragansett does not have any cannabis compassion centers here. If we did, those towns already opted in. Here, there are none. So based on that, the town council does not have the power to make the decision on their own. The voters do, which is different. And if you don't put this in the ballot, then it automatically is allowed. So it's different in a way. I think maybe the legislature's way of encouraging this in some respects. I obviously don't know how the vote would turn out, but that's the situation now. Correct, but the legislation basically overrides that, which is odd, I think, because it doesn't really address the zoning issues that.
They want to dumb everybody else.
So, James, thanks for all your work on this.
Thank you.
All right, Susan, anything else to
No,
add?
they both said it, and I appreciate all the hard work on this, and I look forward to voting on it in November.
And just
Oh,
for-
you do? Deb?
I have no comment.
Patrick?
Yeah, well, we'll go with it. We have to go with it. Hopefully, they're gonna vote it down. I don't think we should be, got enough issues with the youth. The youths.
The youths?
The youths.
All right. And just to add to it, because we've got some emails about this. So we're using the standard wording, right?
Right, the legislation actually included this specific wording for every town.
Yep.
For every.
And then also, this has nothing to do with being able to smoke cannabis or use cannabis on town property. That's a totally separate thing. This is specifically for retail and cultivation at a business level. So not about anything else. Other than that, there are other ordinances that would go into place that may happen down the line that would be similar to smoking on town property. So I just want to
Yeah,
clarify
I think
that.
James is going to be working on that as well.
We have that ready. It should be on the July 18th agenda. just some language tweaks for the definition of cannabis and tobacco.
Great. All right, let's go to the public. Stanley?
20th.
Stan Wachowski, 1044 Boston Neck Road. We don't want some neighbors cultivating and manufacturing marijuana. You know, you can smell that, it's how bad it is. I mean, I owned a 5-unit and one person smoked and it drove everybody out. It's crazy, the smell is crazy. So I don't know what we have to do with this or anything, but we've got to not have cultivation and manufacturing of that smelly stuff in our town anywhere. We don't have open space large enough for that. So whatever we have to do to stop, I don't mind your laboratory testing, sale, I don't care anything else you do, but we don't want that smell being emitted from any lot or any factory or any house or wherever. That smell carries. I don't know if if you drove by Sunset Farm, was it a year ago, boy? That smell came by, you know. There's a smell problem. A neighborhood smell, it's worse than smoke. You know, I used to get upset sometimes getting people with their wood stoves and the smoke would come my way. I'm on the top deck, I can smell the smoke. I don't like that. But this is much worse because it's long-term, overnight, consistent. We have to stop cultivation and manufacturing anywhere on property in our town. So make sure we include that language going forward. Let them make it out in the fields of Exeter or Richmond, and let them cultivate it out there in the farms, where the farms are. Out the farm, right out on the farms, away from our residents. I don't even want to drive by it and smell it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. And I'll just reiterate, so the language that we're talking about is what's in the motion, and that will be on the ballot and will be up to the voters, not the town council. So, Dr. Alba?
I smell marijuana driving on 95. I smell it.
Dr. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace, Narragansett, Rhode Island. I don't know too much about marijuana, even though when I graduated in '79, the '70s, kids smoked it on the bus sometimes, you know, and so you get familiar with the smell just being in public high schools or whatever, around kids. But the thing is, if someone has a medical marijuana card, Stan, I don't know, you know, if what liberties they have in regards to growing their own marijuana if you have a medical marijuana card or whatever. So if this is boilerplate, you know, and this is copied as a boilerplate, then I don't know what liberties we might have to alter it. We might have to, you know, I'm sure the people that put it together for a reason. They know what's required. So I wouldn't want to second guess the experts who put this boilerplate wording word for word. So I would say keep it the way it is and put it on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Ms. Celeberto?
Smoking me together, man.
Catherine Celeberto, 48 Earls Court. I think you're going to have some kind of explanation campaign here. This doesn't outlaw medical marijuana. It doesn't outlaw you growing your own at home for your own purpose. It doesn't outlaw the use of recreational marijuana in town. I think people are getting confused. It just outlaws the sale of it. We're not going to have a head shop, you know, and we just don't need that here in this town, let's face it. And I'm really liberal. I don't think anybody in this town is more liberal than I am, but I just don't think in this little concentrated area that having retail sales would be good. But people are going to have to know this is not infringing on their rights to use marijuana if they want to. So somebody's going to explain it, I guess, right, to the populace, or maybe there'll be a little handout with the ballot question, because sometimes isn't there like a little explanation with the ballot question?
Yeah, I don't know.
They usually do the
That would
ballot
be-
explanation.
My guess is it'll be in the newspaper.
It's yes or no.
Yeah. I can
Why
give you
cannabis?
the
No.
bill number if you want to read it.
All right, anybody else? Okay. All right, so we're going to take the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 5-0. Number 22, a motion to approve a Class A alcoholic beverage license for the Narragansett Lions Club for their fundraising event to be held June 23rd, 2022 at the Kinney Bungalow, subject to state and local regulations.
I'll move the motion.
Is there a second? Okay, any discussion? Any interest in explaining that event? Do you know?
Oh, so it's a Lions event for Mark Shevlin's son on addiction, and the money that's going to be raised is going to be given to the Galilee Mission. And so a lot of great prizes, a lot of great food, $50 a ticket. So if you're
time is it?
interested, let me know.
What time is it?
It's 6 to 10.
Okay,
And
any,
it's an educational evening as well, so they'll have some resources for, as we all know, that's hit our community pretty hard over the years, so it's a good event.
any questions or any comments from the public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approved, 5-0. Number 23 is a motion to approve a mobile food establishment license application for Patsorn Tang 40, doing business as the Little Ice Cream Truck, subject to local and state regulations.
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Can you repeat that word again?
God, I can't even do easy names.
They just give you the best names.
Yeah, is
Sounds
that?
like a bunch of kids' names.
Any discussion or questions?
Nope.
No. Anyone from the public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 5-0. Number 24 is a motion to approve a rooming house license application for 75 Kingstown Road LLC at 75 Kingstown Road, Narragansett, subject to state and local regulations.
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Okay, so this is the previous Blueberry Cove Inn under new ownership.
And it already has a rooming house
Or it
license.
did, yeah.
I guess it would just be under a new, for a new,
Yeah.
yeah. Any comments from the council? Catherine?
I'm waving here.
All that
Captain
cannabis.
Alberto,
That's what I've been smelling.
48 Earls Court. Anyway, Celie had a rooming house license, but really she needed a boarding house license because she lived there with her tenants, and that's technically what she should have had, but she never did. So I guess now the license has expired, and I don't believe this owner is going to live there with his tenants. But you need a special use permit before you get a rooming house license. And so they have to get that first before you issue a rooming house license. Plus, the building inspector is going to have to determine whether or not they need sprinklers. Now, I think Celie had sprinklers. I'm not sure if they were working or not, but I know she did have sprinklers. I know she did put them in. But I'm pretty sure that they have to get a special use permit first before they get this rooming house license. Thank you.
Janet, is that true? Is that accurate?
It will be subject to state and local regulations.
Thank you.
So it goes through that
Thank you.
process. Okay. All right, good point.
Thank you.
Thank you,
for the
Janet.
clarification.
We knew you had it covered. All right, anyone else from the public? Okay, any other questions from the council? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved, 5-0. We have 25 is a motion to approve a holiday license for Kristen Struck Tenor, doing business as Sunstruck LLC at 1171 Boston Neck Road, Narragansett, Rhode Island, 02882, subject to state and local regulations.
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Nope. Anyone from the public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved, 5-0. And then number 26 is a motion to appoint one individual to the planning board.
I'll move the motion.
Second.
I have a nomination. You know, both applicants are excellent.
Yeah, I agree.
They're both excellent in comparing them. You know, one submitted before the other, and one's lived here longer. So I'd like to put Jerry Brunetto up as a planning board person. I think he's got great experience. He has done some work around open space. He cares about protecting the environment. He's been involved in the community. He's lived here a long time. So I think he'd be a good fit in looking at who would work well. You also look at the dynamics of the board, and I just think that he would fit in very nicely.
I'll support that nominee.
Okay, do we have any other nominations?
I was going to nominate Tom Callahan.
Okay.
I think he's got a experience and a background in planning, and he's done work on stuff. And I know he expressed an interest in planning, and he's been wanting, I know he's on the zoning, but he would give that up. So that's my recommendation.
All right, so we have one for Jerry Brunetto, and then one for Tom Callahan. I know you guys said you supported the first one. Do you have any thoughts on the second, or you? Sorry, this is always an awkward conversation.
You know, this is a tough decision because both of them would be excellent. And I think that Tom has a lot going for him. I haven't ever actually worked with Tom. I have worked with Jerry on land trust, and I will tell you that when he's like a dog with a bone. When he wants to get something done, you know, he's really good about it. He does his research. He does his work. I think Jerry's a good choice.
Okay. All right. Patrick, do you have a preference out of the two? Basically, we want to get a consensus so that we can just. Jerry? Okay. All right. All right, so that's the consensus. So do we want to, can you just make your motion again?
Yes, so I'd like to nominate Jerry Brunetto to the planning board.
All right. Second by Patrick. Any comments from the public? Okay. So the nomination for Jerry Brunetto, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, motion approved, 5-0. And then we have a motion to retire to executive session of the Town Council in accordance with Rhode Island General Laws 42464 and 42465A for the following purpose: litigation in accordance with Rhode Island General Laws 42465A2, PRI 10 versus Town of Narragansett tax appeals, WC 2021-0059 and WC 2021-0548, Summer House Inn LLC versus Town of Narragansett, WC 2020-0099, and Kristen Riley et al. Versus the Town of Narragansett, SU 2020-0272. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
So all in favor, roll call vote?
Susan Cicilline, Bonanno, aye.
Eva Straczynski, aye.
Deb Kopek, aye.
Patrick Murray, aye.
Jesse Pugh, aye. Motion approved 5-0. We'll be back out here after executive to adjourn. All right, thank you.
All about everything.
Caleb, good job.
Good job.
We're back to
All right, are we, just let me know if are we on streaming? Okay.
motion to continue the meeting or not?
Open mic's gonna ruin my,
It's 11 o'clock.
Let's just, we'll be
All
done.
right, go ahead.
Do we have a motion to seal the minutes from executive session?
I will move that motion.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved 5-0. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make
Move
the
that
motion to adjourn.
Motion by Counselor Bernardo, second by Counselor
Second.
Murray. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved 5-0.
Smoke 'em if
Have
you
a
got
good
'em,
night.
not
Thank you.
cannabis.